apologies for the extreme tardiness of the wait time of the start time. We had an issue with Zoom needing to be updated before we could launch the meeting, but updating it was locked down. We weren't able to do it without IT being able to intercede. So my apologies, but we're here. We're gonna get started. So really a brief and brilliant on CPA. So this is our fourth funding cycle, I believe. And this is a program that is taxpayer funded and then matched with a state match. This was something that came out of legislation at the state level called the Community Preservation Act, right? And so individual local communities could then choose to sort of buy into this state match by themselves passing a surcharge on themselves of either 1%, 2%, or 3% on top of the regular tax levy. And they could use that funding for this pot of funding could then be harnessed and used in three different categories. You have open space and recreation, affordable housing, and historic preservation. And then there would be a certain percentage match every year that the state would then also bestow on the community. So this year we have around $720,000 in order to fund different projects in our community. We don't have to spend all of it. We can spend up to that amount. We have to spend at least 10% in each of the three categories. And if we do not have a third category, in this case, we actually don't have any housing applicants. That's largely due to the fact that there was a real increase in funding available for housing projects through ARPA funding. So a lot of projects that would have come to us instead went through ARPA and were fully funded in that way. So this year we have a great group of applicants who are representing open space and recreation and representing historic preservation that we'll be hearing from tonight. So this is a meeting that is open to the public in the sense that folks have the opportunity to weigh in and give us a sense of their thinking. There are two ways that folks can do that. After each brief presentation, each applicant will get 5 minutes to explain the merits of their project. Then there will be a space for Q&A. So members of the committee who have questions can unmute and ask questions of the applicants and we can hear their answers. Members of the public can message our staffer, Amy Landau, and can ask their questions of her if she wants to forward those questions on to us so that we can get those answers from the applicants as well. And then we'll create a space for public comment after each one if there are folks who want to specifically speak to a project in terms of support or concern. And we're going to limit those comments to 1 minute each person. We're also going to be providing a survey in the chat link so that you can see what the projects are and also give feedback that way. So you can also rate projects in terms of your thinking or present your questions or concerns or your support of a project in that way as well through the Google survey. Amy, can you put that link in the chat?
Yeah, I'm
now,
just working on that now. I just want to warn you that my, as you know, my computer is slow. So if people are trying to chat with me and I don't receive it or I can't see their responses, I mean, that's what's happened before. So, or there's a delay. So I just wanted to warn you that that might be a problem.
Yeah, and if we do think that that's a problem, folks can message me too. Okay, so let's get started. We are going to start with Girls Inc. Headquarters and Program Center, presented by Suzanne Parker. And then we'll be going to MIFA Victory Theater Sconces, presented by Donald Sanders. And then the Lady Liberty Monument Restoration, presented by Bob Parent. Okay, let's get started with our first applicant. You have 5 minutes.
Great, and it looks like you need to enable screen sharing. So I have some slides.
Done.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. I'm sorry, who was just talking?
I did it, Amy.
Okay, thank you.
Great, so I will get that going. Let me get the slideshow going here. And just, are you seeing the full slides? Okay, just hold on, just go back 1 second. Get this right for you. Oh, you are seeing the full slides, okay.
We were, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for this opportunity to present before the Community Preservation Act Committee. I'm Suzanne Parker, the Executive Director for Girls Inc. And we also have here attending Ruth Roy, who's our Campaign Director, and Matt Blumenfeld on our team, who can also answer some technical questions if they come up. This proposal is for $150,000 in community preservation funds to restore the exterior and improve accessibility to our historically significant building at 480 Hamden Street. As detailed in our proposal, we purchased the building last fall to become our new headquarters and program center, and are planning significant renovations to both the interior and the exterior. Girls Inc. has served Holyoke families since 1981. We've always actually leased or borrowed space. So this project will preserve a valuable historic resource and provide a high quality permanent space for Girls Inc.'s transformative youth development programming year round for decades to come. The 3.2 million total renovation that we'll be doing will create a fully ADA accessible facility that offers intentionally designed program space for participants 5 to 18. It'll include a maker space, a library learning center, a community room, and also a teen lounge. CPA funds are needed to restore the building envelope and also to improve access to the building. So we're requesting CPA funding specifically for the masonry work, slate roof restoration, addition of the elevator and lift, and also the outdoor program deck and accessibility ramp. So of the projected $3.2 million total renovation costs, about a little tongue tied at the end of the day here. $565,000 is budgeted for preservation of the building envelope. And again, I mentioned those, main areas, masonry, facade work, slate roof restoration, historic preservation consultant will be funded, and also the plaque for CPA funding recognition. And then we have the funding that we're going to be doing for the elevator lift and the outdoor deck and wheelchair accessible ramp. For the $150,000 that we're applying for Community Preservation Act, we would use $100,000 for the masonry work. $43,500 would be for the slate roof work that we need to do. $4,500 for the historic preservation consultant, and also $2,000 for the signage. Through our Future comprehensive campaign, we've been actively raising funds for the facility, in addition to funding program expansion in our Eureka STEM program. And thanks to a broad range of donors, including individuals and corporations, foundations, and government sources, we've raised over $3 million toward our overall campaign goal of $5 million. Throughout the remainder of 2022, though, we're really going to be focusing our efforts on fundraising specifically for the building. And Community Preservation Act support can play an essential role in advancing the project to construction phase, particularly with respect to securing and stabilizing the building envelope. And of note, subsequent to submission of the proposal, we've actually continued to move ahead with selection of a construction manager, and certainly also with our fundraising and our financing. So I want to thank you, and we welcome any questions that you have. I'll stop sharing.
Any members of the committee have questions for the applicant? Yes, Michael Falsetti.
Suzanne, how many girls do you currently serve at your present location?
So we're actually in a little bit of a pinch right now, Michael, because space that we were leasing from, we had ended that. We actually moved out because of a need of that organization. We've been leasing space from Boys and Girls Club. So we wanted to accommodate that project that they were doing, which left us to the space at Open Square Way, which is very limited on how many youth we can serve in our center. We've actually reached over 500 participants this fiscal year, and our fiscal year starts July 1. So our goal will be that we would be reaching 1,000 participants in a year. Yep.
Yeah, when you're defining the participants, are these members, are the actual members that have like a card that say, I'm a member of the Girls Inc., or are they people that walk, young girl ladies that walk through the door? How are you defining that?
So for us, participants are involved in intentional Girls Inc. programming. So they could be signing up and participating in hours and hours of programming. It's not just that they walk in the door and they sign up to be a member. Our participants are enrolled in programs from educational support to health and wellness programming to STEM programming. And they, again, could range from 8-week programs to year-long programs.
Do you, and your your ideal goal, I guess, is 1,000 young ladies to fit into that O'Connell building when it's all said and done. Is that it?
So we actually serve participants in a lot of different ways, and one is with center-based programming. And I cannot say enough that families are desperate for center-based programming right now.
How are you defining that? How do you define that? Center-based?
Like where kids come to our program center that we can control. So, but we also, Michael, just to be clear, we do serve youth. A lot of the youth that we're reaching right now are in partnership with schools. So our staff actually go to the schools as well to deliver programming. So we do it in two ways: in partnership with schools at school locations, at community locations, but primarily we want our new program home and headquarter, which we are again in desperate need for.
So right now you have about $3 million towards the goal of 5.2 million?
We have an overall goal for the campaign of 5 million, and 1 million of that was for actually increasing the number of youth that we serve in our geographic area. $1 million was secured for our Eureka program, which is a science, technology, engineering, and math program for older teens. And then 3 million of the overall goal is for the building. We've raised 3 million towards the goal, but we have about $2 million more to raise towards the building and the building renovations.
So right now, you need, actually, are you telling me you need to secure the building and renovate it to bring it where it ought to be, you need $3 million. Is that correct?
So we've already purchased the building. So we've raised over $3 million towards our overall $5 million goal for our campaign. We continue to seek out, funding and pledges. And I have to say, we have an incredible campaign committee. Well, they're doing the work. It's been a challenge, but we've been successful in securing significant pledges, and we're confident that we're going to reach that goal so that we can, achieve all of the renovations that we want to.
Ideally speaking, when is the date? I mean, I'm sure you'd rather it be tomorrow, but when the $5 million, is that 2 years? Does your committee say in 2 years we'll have the 5 million, and 1 year, and 3 years? What are you folks saying? I realize you're throwing a dart at the board, but any estimation?
Michael, I guess I would say that when you launch a campaign right before a pandemic, you never know what's going to happen. But we have been incredibly successful as our organization. Year to date, in our 6 months of our fiscal year, we've already raised an additional over $500,000 towards our campaign goal just this year already. So I feel really confident. We have a great committee, a great group of volunteers. We have a very aggressive strategy towards securing those pledges, and I'm confident we're going to make it happen. I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
we have a solid plan, and I just received an email yesterday from another $50,000 gift towards our campaign goal and towards the building. So it's happening. Yeah.
So the $150,000 from the CPA would be spent almost immediately to secure the envelope and the roof.
That's right. It
Correct.
Really gets us a great start. We've to do any other renovations does not make sense unless you secure the envelope of it, which I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it really is important. It gets us the start we need to get those renovations underway in the right way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions from another member of the committee? Israel Rivera?
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Suzanne. And thank you to Girls Inc. I've been around you guys like my whole life. I'm not a girl per se, right? So I was never able to be in the Girls Inc. But I grew up in the Boys and Girls Club. So you guys were our neighbor for a very long time. My wife was a member of Girls Inc. and my mother-in-law worked for Girls Inc. for a very long time. I understand the mission. I understand the goals. I understand the programming, if it's similar to the Boys and Girls Club with satellite units and having different programmings, housing after school. And I'm sorry, I have my daughter running around.
No, that's great.
She'll be at Girls Inc. soon too.
Nah, maybe. I'm a Boys and Girls Club kid, so it's competition. We'll see.
They can do both. I think she can do both.
We'll see. Yeah, no, we can do both. But ultimately, I guess that my questions is if you could speak to what the public benefit would be around if you were to get granted the $150,000. A lot of questions have come up for me as a city councilor and for a lot of taxpayers and people within the community, are concerned that a lot of the money is going to end up going to nonprofit organizations. For me, I have no issue with us making a decision that is going to help create a valuable public benefit to the community, to the kids, and to the city of Holyoke. But I would just like to give you the space to be able to speak to that, just in case we do proceed with your project and it allows for me to have something to say to these people, right? At the same time.
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking about right now is a Girls Inc. alumna who born and raised and grew up in Holyoke, a block from the center right next to Boys and Girls Club at the Girls Inc. And who then, graduated from high school, went on to Georgetown, went on to Harvard, who's now incredibly successful and giving back now, actually helping us get this building. We multiply her times 1,000, times 2,000. It's about providing opportunity for kids who don't always have those opportunities. And it's unfortunate, but there are challenges, right? There are families in Holyoke who maybe can't afford those really awesome STEM camps, right? That some families can't afford. We provide that at no cost to participants. All of our programs are, for the most part, at no cost, unless there's a funding source like the state that may require it. But right now, we have no programs that require any family to pay. So we are raising those funds, raising those resources. Our doors are open to all participants who are interested in participating in Girls Inc. And so I think that is that ultimate benefit, right? To provide opportunities for kids to thrive. Certainly this funding particularly will help also restore this building that so many people have connections to. I think every person I run into talks about a story related to this building that's been around for a very long time. It's going to help restore that. It's such a prominent location in Holyoke. And I'm looking forward to being close to Avery Park and using Avery Park and having, I can imagine participants in the summer using that park, having a lot of activity. I could keep talking on and on, Israel, but I think there's some opportunities for us to partner with the Y that's right there. I think it just opens up so many opportunities for us.
Thank you for that.
For the public. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then just for me, I don't know if I heard you probably answered it for Mr. Falsetti. How long before you guys actually think that you would have something happening there?
So we have a great team already together. We have 90% construction documents ready to go with our architects, Kuhn Riddle Architects. We have been in the process and our board was selecting a construction firm. So if all goes well, we would love to be having a meeting in January of 2023. The full, the renovations to get us in that building.
Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this project? And Amy, have you received any questions?
I'm looking right now. I don't see any. I just wanted to remind people that if you can please, if you don't have your name on your video, if you can please rename by clicking on the upper right-hand corner, just so we all know who's here with your first and last name, that would be great. But no, I don't see any questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Suzanne Parker. Okay, we're gonna move to our second applicant. And our second applicant is Don Sanders. MIFA Victory Theater for their theater Sconces.
Thank you very much. It's great to warm oneself tonight with all these wonderful projects. And so I'm here to talk about the Victory Theater and another really, really great building in Holyoke and its historic preservation. We are asking for support for the restoration and recreation of sconces, lighting fixtures inside the Victory Theater. There are 63 of them dotted around the building. And just to put that in perspective, the Victory Theater is a 43,000 square foot building. It has 1,600 seats. It is accurately described as the only remaining Broadway-sized theater left in the Connecticut River Valley, from Old Saybrook all the way to the Canadian border, and it's here in Holyoke. And we have been working on its saving, its restoration, and eventually its reopening to be a major performing arts center for the entire region. And I'd like to show you the architect's rendering of the exterior of the building once it's done. We're having our own, there we go. This is the Victory Theater. It's at,
I haven't shared the screen.
okay, sorry. We're sharing the screen.
And, yeah.
Thank you. We can see it.
Okay,
Great.
okay, great. So the Victory Theater, this is the architect's rendering of the exterior of the building. So we're at 8189 Suffolk Street, and a very dark patch at the moment, but when the theater is open, you'll see all these lights on. The theater is figured to attract 70,000 people a year to Holyoke. It'll have a budget of about $3.8 million. And it's really seen as a major cultural and touristic attraction, not just for the city, but for the whole region. And now this is one of the sconces, one of the 63 sconces. And it is made out of etched glass. You can see the V in the center of the glass, which stands for victory. These were created in 1941 for a renovation of the interior of the building. You can see them against the wall in the back where the green arrows point. So they are throughout the entire building and over to the there's one without its glass shield on the left. And as I said, there are 63 of them throughout the building. They were done in 1941. The building was opened in 1920. And in 1941, it went through a stylish upgrading in the Art Deco, or what some people call the style moderne idiom. And here are the architect's drawings of the sconces. They are beautifully made. This is one of the sconces without its glass shade. I'm going to call it a shade. And if you can envision, the glass shade goes over the fixture and gives this incredibly beautiful light diffused through the etched glass. And that's brass trim around holding the glass shade to the fixture. Again, I love the V there etched in the glass. I like to stress that, and here's the interior of the upstairs lobby of the theater. Again, I can't say too much about how incredible the building is inside. Most people who walk by it on the outside have no idea of the fact that there is a 42,000 square foot building inside there. Here is a creative photographer's view of the glamour of the building, and where the green arrows are shows where the sconces fit into the architectural assemblage of the building. They're an absolutely important part. Here's a wide view picture of the auditorium showing some of the 1,600 seats and the scale of the building. There's myself to give you some aspect of the human scale. It's a very, very impressive, wonderful building. When these sconces are redone and rehung inside the theater, it will be, I think, one of the most beautiful, I can say with complete confidence, one of the most beautiful buildings in the whole Northeast, and certainly as a place for people to go to see Broadway shows, special festival events like opera and dance, and community events, including Saturday morning cartoon shows for local kids. It's really going to be an incredibly special experience that will be unique to Holyoke. So having these sconces restored will be an aspect of that. The overall project is a $54 million project. We have been working on this project since 2005. We took ownership of the building in 2009. We have currently identified $33 million towards the 54. And we are slugging away and raising money. I'm very proud to say that in the most recent ARPA bill in front of the state legislature, the Victory Theater Project was awarded funds in recognition of how important it will be for the cultural, touristic, and community life of Holyoke. So I should also say that the sconces will be restored and can be shown before they are fixed into the interior of the building as beautiful objects. They will join the murals, which will be displayed in City Hall, and not all 63 of them probably, but people will have a chance to see what beautiful things we have here in this city. And we're very proud of the fact that Holyoke has supported this project and that we will be opening doors so that people can come. The sooner the better. I love what Suzanne said about, or someone said about throwing a dart at a dartboard, what date, but we'll get there. And I'd love to answer any questions.
Thank you, Don. Any questions from the committee?
I think for me, Megan, I'm going to ask everyone the same question with regards to the public benefit. I know Mr. Don Sanders, you did go through it and you mentioned several pieces of it, right? With saying how much it could bring to the city. And with regards to it, it's just if you could specifically speak to that question. I would just kind of want to be fair and equal with everyone and not feel like I just did it to a couple people, not to everyone.
Absolutely. No, I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, it is hard to overemphasize how important a theater of this scale that houses 1,600 people is to the life of the community, and the various, the musical that's done at the high school can be shown in this theater so that you have kids studying how to do a Broadway musical and then actually performing it inside a Broadway house. That's one aspect. The other aspect is just the beating heart and the warmth that people going in and out the doors of a theater and seeing music, dance, films, it brings just a public good. It used to be said that no city could actually account itself a real city unless it had a theater. And I think, you know, tough as it is, I think it's really true. There's just a quality that when you see people, when people will go up and down Suffolk Street and see audience members looking out the window or their silhouettes in the window, will be a fantastic thing for the city. It will also, we have a user demand study that shows that we have the population, not only in Holyoke, but in the surrounding region for people to come and enjoy this. So that is the public benefit. We also have an education program. We call it Professionals in Training, where with the high school and Holyoke Community College, young folks will be trained in all the aspects of the management and running of a theater. That's very important. Box office, lighting, sound, stage management, all of the parts of the actual beating heart of a living entertainment industry that has actually about, even given COVID now, at normal times has over like 101% employment opportunities. So these are real workforce jobs. So the education program is very important too.
Thank you. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? All right, are there any questions from the public or anyone from the public who wants to speak to this project? All right, well, thank you very much, Don Sanders, appreciate it. Amy, is your hand up?
Is it okay if I ask a question? Yeah, so I'm just wondering, Don, if the sconces would actually be installed so that they would be lit in the city ballroom, and if
Yes.
thought about how long they would be up, and if that's
Right.
and if there's an agreement with Don Parent about that.
Yes. So they would be lighted, and we would work on a way of displaying them so they could be seen, you know, and the lights turned on and turned off. We would be showing them under the same circumstances as the murals, which would be as on permanent loan to the city. And then when the theater is ready to open, they would be returned and installed in the theater. But up until that point, they would be on permanent loan to the city, and I think would look very beautiful in the city ballroom with the murals.
Okay, thank you. Marco Crescentini?
Yes, thank you. Question about how many are existing and how many are, I don't remember if reconstructed was the word that you used. I imagine that you have recreated. I imagine you have a lot of the bases, but fewer of the glass shields or screens or shades.
Correct.
Do you have those numbers? I mean,
yes.
It'd be nice
So
to know that.
There are 63 altogether, and the ones that, so Grand Lighting out of Seymour, Connecticut has given us the basic estimate and, you know, scope of work. It's about, you know, of the 63, they also come in different sizes, but of the very large ones that you saw pictures of, we actually have a fair amount of those. They're in need. The ones that we have are in need of engraving, et cetera. But it's about you know, I should know the exact number. It's about 33 of the actual glass pieces are there, and the rest would have to be the cost. The estimate that we've had is $150,000 seems to be the amount in the air tonight, but we've had an estimate of $150,000 to do everything, to remake the glass, etch them, etc., polish the brass, one of the issues is that, of course, things were made to such a high level, frankly, in 1941, and we will do it to the same standard. So each one will go back. I like to think that you won't be able to tell the difference between the ones that have maybe been more, shall we say, recreated than the ones that are original.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to our third applicant. Right, that is the Lady Liberty Monument Restoration. Bob Parent, you're up.
Yes, good evening. It doesn't look like my camera is working. I've got a new laptop, but unless you can see me, I can't see me myself, but I will put up a presentation if I can.
Yes.
I just made you co-host, so you should be able to do that.
Thank you. I think I'm here in part to sort of recap where we are today, given this project has already been approved. If there's a different understanding, certainly feel free to let me know.
Bob, do you want me to explain why it was already funded? Do you want me to explain why it was already funded, or do you want to?
I understand that, but if again, I don't know what information was shared with this committee prior to obtain that funding, so I was going to provide an overall.
That sounds great.
Okay, so the Lady Liberty Project is a project that I've been working with Mike Falsetti on now for probably going back about 2 years, year and a half ago. At this point, it was. Originally, the project received a grant from the CPC to study the Civil War monument located in the center of Veterans Park. The study was completed. The city hired a firm known as TO Design, who brought in a restoration expert, conserve art, to complete the study. They completed their study in July of 2021. They estimated a cost of the full restoration of $110,000. Without any contingencies. Mike worked very heavily with, and I'm blank out the senator's name, our Senator, my apologies. Senator Vilas, thank you. Senator Vilas to get a legislative earmark approved for this project as part of the fiscal 22 budget bill. In December, as you know, there was an emergency authorization from the CPA grant approved of $60,000 to get to the $110,000. We advertised the project to bid. We received bids today. We just, for what it's worth, we received 2 bids. 1 bid came in within our budget to complete much of the project, and I'll explain that in just a moment. So where we are from a funding standpoint, again, we have 2 sources of funding. We have a legislative earmark from the Department of Veteran Services. The big string that comes with that one is that we have to expend the funds and pay them out by June 30th. And that is really what created the urgency relative to the application for CPA funding for this project, because we had to have some idea of what we would have available for funding when we were getting the project out to bid, so we could structure the bid such that we would either have to attempt to complete a portion of the project or hopefully complete the entirety of the project. Some more information regarding how this likely would work. In terms of funding in this case, because we'd have funding from multiple funding sources, what's worked out pretty well in the past is that the city would create a single internal fund that would receive revenue from the Department of Veterans that would be the source of payment for the contractor's bill, and would receive revenue from the Department of Veteran Services, and would also receive revenue from the CPA grant, and that grant would actually be received once the project is completed, and the committee signs off on the project, and then those funds would be transferred internally so as to basically be the revenue source for the expenditures that have already incurred. A little bit about the project. The project really had two different types of, or has two different types of treatment, the treatment of the bronze and the treatment of the granite. The treatment of the bronze, as you see here, was focused on, and my screen is partly blocked, okay, removing corrosion that exists on the bronze, as well as some previous, as I understand it, efforts to do some coloration on the bronze that creates some inconsistent appearance to it, as well as to make some repairs to the bronze and do what is known as repatination, which is basically creating a restoration quality appearance to the bronze that would be uniform across the entire bronze statue, as opposed to the splotchy, uneven appearance that is there now. There are, within the bronze at the base of the statue, there are some missing items. So part of the scope is included in refabricating some of the missing items. You can see as you look at this plaque here, there's actually an arm of the individual. Actually, I think this may have been a sword that was broken off, but there are a couple of items like this that are broken off of the bronze elements. The other portion of the monument is the granite. The granite is very heavily weathered in some places, and you can see that on the lettering that was chiseled into the granite. It's also heavily stained in many areas. So the project would involve cleaning, does involve cleaning, as well as effectively reinforcing the granite in some of the areas around the text so that it doesn't further degrade. That's the stone consolidant, and as well as some repair to some of the joints in the granite. The bid was structured with what are known as ad alternates, which are a strategy that we have to use in municipal projects to make certain that we can award the contract within the budget that we have. What you do is you basically create a base bid that is the work that you absolutely want to get done, and then work that, subject to the availability of funding, you would do if that funding is available. So we created 3 different ad alternates. And the reason we do that is, in a municipal setting, you cannot award a contract if you don't have the funding available in hand to award the contract. You can't award a project that is over your budget and then try to negotiate the scope down. You have to award it based upon the agreed upon as bid scope. And then once it's awarded, you then have an opportunity to negotiate with the contractor, if you choose, relative to the scope of the work. So the 3 ad alternates were creating new honor rolls, new bronze plaques, effectively, that would be installed on granite blocks at ground level, that would allow, instead of altering the granite by trying to re-engrave or re-chisel the lettering, it would be new plaques that would memorialize the names that currently exist on the granite so that they would be readable to any passersby. It includes accent lighting around the monument, and it includes relocating the flagpole in part to create a better location for putting the new granite blocks and honor rolls in place. So from our standpoint, what's next? We have to review the bids and award the contract. We're in that process right now. We have to determine what of those alternates can be awarded within the budget. And once it's awarded, again, we may have an opportunity to negotiate with the selected contractor regarding the scope of some of these items. Kick off the project. We have to spend that first $50,000 by June 30th. So that was an absolute contract requirement. It's written right into the bid documents. Get it completed, then ultimately satisfy this committee such that the funds can be transferred to the project budget. So that's what I have.
And as an emergency application, they were able to come in and be funded at an earlier date so that we could make sure we secured funding and get the project moving without losing the state match. Questions from the committee? I see Marco with your hands up.
Yes, these the new bronze plaques on the granite markers, I guess, have they been designed? Like, are they arranged around like the sidewalk, or I see that image there. I was actually on another page trying to see if I could see what it looked like in real life. But is there a plan or some kind of view that you can explain how the granite markers are arranged? Like you said, they were separate, right?
Right. There isn't. There basically would be two. As described in the recommendations, there would be two bronze plaques that would then be mounted on a granite base. And if I remember correctly, the granite base would be angled at about a 30-degree angle, cut such that you could see it, see it at the ground level. But there isn't a plan that shows the exact location of those. Those were to be established in the field.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Is there anyone who wants to speak in support of the project or ask a question from the public? Michael Falsetti. I don't know if I didn't see your hand earlier. Go ahead.
Bob, keep up the good work. I can't wait till it's done. I think we all can't wait till it's done. And I think it'll be a great day for the city when it's first approved and the curtain is drawn and we can be there. As I said before at the Veterans meeting a month ago, what a grand 4th of July it would be, this 4th of July actually, if we could have the veterans band, the choir, and elected officials everywhere to be for the unveiling of the new statue. What a 4th of July celebration that would be. So Bob, keep up the good work, and I'll be seeing you, I'm sure, along the way. And I think this is a great project for the city, and not only the city, for anybody actually. Driving by the park to see that statue renewed, it's certainly be a grand day in the city of Hoyoke. And Bob, keep up the good work, and I'll be speaking with you, I'm sure, along the way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, and most definitely.
Parent, you're also on tap for the next presentation, which is the City Hall stained glass window restoration phase 4.
Let me know, can you see my stained glass window slide?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. Okay. I didn't know if I had to jump back out and back in again. So the request that we put forward would be to complete the 4th phase of the City Hall stained glass window restoration project. It's been in front of the committee twice to date. We definitely greatly appreciate the funding that were received in the past. I won't go back too much through some of the history because I think many members are fairly familiar with it, but I can get back to it if you'd like. Relative to windows and window numbers, if you look at this graphic that you can see in front of you, the windows on the right-hand side of the screen, windows number 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 have now been fully restored and reinstalled. They are in place today. Window number 3 on the City Hall parking deck side of the ballroom has also been restored and replaced. The other windows, 1, 2, 4, 5, 2 small windows that were in the back of the City Hall, 6 and 7, and the larger window that was in the front of the City Hall are now in storage, so as to protect them, so we don't have a problem like we had with window number 3, where we actually had a piece of the window fail and fall onto the parking deck before it could be restored. So the windows that are not restored are in storage up in a large storage room outside of the ballroom so they can be protected for the future. Again, this is the 3rd phase of a project. Phase 1 dates back to 2015, I believe, long before I was with the city. 2 windows were restored, Serpentino completed that work. Phase 2 project was the first project I was involved in, and the first project that the CPC was involved in. And at that point, we restored windows 9 and 11, reinstalled them. We took down window number 3, which was the one that was damaged by the wind. And if you can see the photographs on the right-hand side, you can see the piece of glass that was missing from the top of window number 3. Fortunately, our stained glass window preservationist who oversees the work and was located up in North Adams at that time was able to get on site within about an hour and a half of notification. And she was able to remove most of the glass that was dangling above the floor and the parking deck before it fell to the ground. There were some pieces of the sky, but not the head and the figurine that was lost at that point. Guarducci Stained Glass did that project. We then completed last year the 3rd phase, which was also funded through the Community Preservation Act, as well as Mass Historical Commission, which participated in all 3 phases. We restored window 12 and window 3, reinstalled them, and we removed and, as I said, created all the other windows. And Serpentino, again, once the firm that did the 1st phase did the 3rd phase as well. This year's future is a little bit uncertain. Obviously, we don't know what the CPC will ultimately decide. We've also been advised somewhat informally by Mass Historical that we may not be in a great position to receive additional Mass Historical funding this year. Basically, the state preservation architect pulled me to the side after we did the field inspection, the last phase, and said, Bob, you know, it might be a good idea if the city found something else to apply for this next year for Mass Historical funding. I think in part of that is they're shifting away from stained glass window funding in general. They had a lot of issues with stained glass windows in churches that were ultimately not able to be funded with state funding as a result of a court action. And perhaps because of that, they may be shifting away from stained glass window restoration, or they may just have felt that they've contributed enough towards the City of Holyoke stained glass windows. But Paul didn't tell me we wouldn't receive funding, but he encouraged us to look for some other projects that might have a greater opportunity to be funded. So what we presented in this application, which is what we've done previously, is we presented a 50-50 split between CPA and Mass Historical funding. CPA funding has been a great source of funding because we're required to have a 50% match to receive Mass Historical funding. So it's worked out very well in the past. But in the event that we don't receive Mass Historical funding, we have 2 options. We either look at trying to continue with a 2-window project and look for CPA funding for the entire amount, or we look at a 1-window project and look for CPA funding of just the $80,000 amount. So that's the reason I presented things in this manner, somewhat pragmatically, that we may not receive MHC money. We will apply for it still, so we're certainly going to take our chance, and who knows, maybe we will receive the funding. But it sounded like we had less chance this year than we might have in previous years. Then an update in terms of where we stand. If we were able to do these 2 windows, we would still have 3 of the large windows in the parking deck, 2 of the large windows in the parking deck side of the City Hall ballroom to complete. The 2 small windows at the rear, and then the larger window at the front of the City Hall. And again, if we were able to do 2 windows this year, we would still have about $250,000 to $300,000 worth of restoration to work to complete in the future. This is our timeline. Again, as I said, we will submit an application to Mass Historic. We'll see how all that plays out. And also see again how our application with your committee plays out as well.
All right. Questions from the committee? Michael?
Bob, perhaps Senator John Velas would be interested to know our plight and how you feel that the Massachusetts Historical Society may not give us the 50-50 grant they have in the past. Again, this is your call, use your own judgment, but John Velas is a big booster of Holyoke, and he may be more persuasive than you or I would be in getting money from the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Just an idea, but it's up to you, Bob. But I would, perhaps a letter or a phone call wouldn't be a bad idea, but use your own judgment.
No, I do think it's a good idea, and I've, through a couple of projects, including Lady Liberty, I've developed a bit of a working relationship with the staff in the senator's office. So I will definitely reach out to them.
Good. Thank you.
So, based on what you've shared with us effectively, this is a multi-stage project. Out of the 3 phases so far, CPC has supported funding twice, and it looks like, there are different options in terms of, what level of support we give in this phase, but that there will be other phases coming. Do you have a sense of over how many years you're hoping to sort of stagger this project, ideally?
What we had been doing in the past was working out pretty well. It was the 2 windows, or the equivalent of 2 windows per year. If we continued at that rate, if we were able to do 2 this year, we would have 2 more large windows left, and then probably the final phase would be the front window as well as the two rear windows, because they're relatively small and they're not particularly complicated or ornate windows, so the restoration cost of those will be relatively low compared to the other windows. So best case, we would be looking at probably 2 years after this year. Worst case might be it stretches out a bit longer than that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
If I may, Megan, or Chair, Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Parent, for the work you've been doing on this, and the people in the past, and all the former CPA members that voted. I went in the other day at the top floor when I got inaugurated at City Council, and I saw the new windows, and it's pretty amazing, and it looks pretty cool to see it. I'm not gonna lie, and I hope the city starts to apply for more different projects within the city hall itself, because the building itself is beautiful, and it would be a travesty to lose a lot of the beauty that comes with one of our oldest buildings here in Holyoke. But yeah, again, thank you with regards to the work that you put in with all this.
You're welcome.
I second that. My 3-year-old refers to the city hall as the castle. All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments from the public? All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Parent, for presenting twice.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. We are now moving to Wisteriahurst, repainting and repairing exterior with Megan. Is it Sealers or Sellers?
Siler.
Siler. There we go. There was a third door that I could choose. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Is this sharing? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here and listening to this presentation for the exterior repainting and repointing project. Just a site overview, Wisteriahurst is a historic estate that was built in 1874. It was given to the city in 1959 and is owned and operated by Holyoke. The site hosts concerts, art shows, lectures, tours, and other programs. Each year, annually serving around 10,000 visitors, and this number is pre-COVID. Currently, we've had over 1,000 people on site for tours, our Connecting Threads exhibition, and our holiday open house. And then we've served over 700 people with our virtual programming. The property is on the Massachusetts and National Registers of Historic Places and is protected and preserved by a deed restriction held by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Here's just a broad overview of the property. We have the carriage house, which is over 2,000 square feet and 2 stories, and the main house, which is over 13,000 square feet and 3 stories. The project overview is Wisteriahurst is requesting $125,000 to repaint, repair, and repoint the exterior structures of the main house and the carriage house. One of the reasons we are hoping to get the CPA funds is Wisteriahurst not only provides a lot of great programming and history and holds the city archives, but we also generate revenue through private events. And we are an anchor here in the community, and having everything looking good on the exterior helps property values in the area and our neighbors at the senior center across the street. So the source of project scope and estimates. So in 2018, an engineer from the firm Mott McDonald and the city engineer conducted a comprehensive walkthrough at the Wisteriahurst and identified multiple interior and exterior areas in need of repair. Some of you might be familiar with this report because we used a great deal of it to advocate for our electrical repairs that we gratefully received funds from CPA for previously. We structured this project around their recommendations for the exterior site, and we considered the time lapse between the last painting in 2008. And normally it's between 10 and 15 years in which you'd want to repaint the house. And then we also, just visually looking and walking around the building, it's very easy to see what needs to be done. We're currently working on budget estimates through in-kind estimates from contractors and past receipts of similar work. I'm just going to include a few images of the condition of the house. So as you can see, this is pretty exemplary of how the paint looks all around the house due to highly fluctuating weather of hot and cold and going from one extreme to the other rather quickly. I think that's helped to deteriorate the exterior much faster than we anticipated. As you can see, there are some holes in wood trim, which just happens over the years. This is a really important site, is the exit and entrance for the music room. We hold a lot of our private events, especially weddings, in that space. And most of the time people like to take pictures on this back patio space, but due to the flaking paint, photographers have kind of commented on that before. So it's sort of been a bit of a deterrent. This is the Pine Street entrance. As you can see where the stairs are in the white trim, there's a big hole missing. And then as you can see to the right, these are the bricks. It's missing mortar and is starting to crumble a little bit. Here's another example. This is wrapped around from that Pine Street entrance. We have a set of small stairs there. The wall has now separated from the buttressing staircase. It's also missing a lot of mortar. This right here is the Cabot Street second floor chimney. To the left, it is missing bricks and mortar as well, and is actually causing internal structural damage in one of our rooms. Water has been leaking and damaging the historic wallpaper that is there above the fireplace. We thought that it was perhaps a roof issue, and we had Mahan Roofing come out and do an inspection, and they determined that it was not in fact the roof causing that problem, and saw the state of the chimney and advised repairing that as soon as possible. To the right, you can see the foundation on the same side of Cabot Street. Most of the foundation, you'll see a covering above the brick that normally would be smooth and consistent throughout the foundation, but beneath it is bricks, and the exposed bricks are missing mortar, which is again having water leaking into the property, causing damage. So the project steps, we reached out to MHC, our contact there, kind of got some guidelines of what we needed to do to get approval. In which case I started reaching out to firms to sort of see who we could work with to help us with this planning and MHC approval. After that, if we secure funds, we're going to begin the chimney repointing right away, just because it is causing damage within our rooms. And then sending out the RFQs for both the repainting and the foundation repointing. Right now, we're just going to focus on getting the bricks repointed and not repairing the smooth covering of the foundation because it's not essential. And then solidifying the contract for the exterior trim repairs and painting, and then hopefully then moving on to completing the repointing of the foundation and the stairs. Hopefully we want to be wrapped up by the end of October, but when the weather gets cold for the repainting, and hopefully by the end of November for the repointing. Here's our preliminary budget. The last time that the repainting was done, it came in at around $123,000. Rough estimates say that it'll be around $200,000. Repointing chimneys would be, because not all of them need repointing, some are in really good shape, be around $4,500. Foundation and step repointing comes in around $37,000. And again, just based on preliminary things, we also have to talk with the Historical Commission and get all of that approved for grout color and matching. And then historical preservation oversight of construction is coming in at $8,500 or $8,500. Project funding. So outside of CPA funds, we have submitted an MCC capital grant. We do have a contract with them for the electrical work, so we're not sure if we qualified or not, but we applied for it anyway. And then we're also planning, if we do not get the capital grant, to apply for MHC, Massachusetts Preservation Projects Fund grant, which Bob was talking about previously for the stained glass. And then the Wisteriahurst Foundation will also work to fundraise and solicit donations and needed supplies like they did the last time. We got the paint secured by, I believe, Sherman-Williams the last time this project was done, and we're hoping to see that happen again.
Thank you so much. All right, questions from the committee? I had one question, which was around so the entire project is $250,000. What's the specific ask that you're asking of us? And I also saw on the last slide that you're pursuing other forms of funding as well.
Yeah, so we were hoping to get $125,000 as the 50% matching required so that we can complete the whole project. We're trying to shore up the exterior to protect it and to also kind of protect the electrical investment that was already done for the house. And so the $125,000 would probably right away start with repointing the chimney and then starting the other projects as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
For me, thank you for the presentation. Wisteriahurst is a pretty cool place, to be honest. What was I gonna say? Mine kind of stems off of what Megan was saying with regards to like 250 was the full ask. So not the full ask, the full presentation, but 125, from what I understanding, is the ask. Is there a way that we can identify where the 125 will go, line by line item, so that way we're clearer as to where the 125 will go? And hopefully it doesn't make things a little more difficult. It's just to have a little clarification as to where the 125 will be dedicated to with regards to that. That's it for me.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I applied for the broad scope of the project, confident that we could get the matching funds from either the MCC capital grant or the preservation. I think our top priority is going to be repainting. If we get, I guess that would be probably where we'd want to spend the biggest chunk of that money.
So I guess for me, that's where it's at. So like, where do you want to spend the biggest chunk? Identify that. And then, so if it's repointing and repainting and whatever, I mean, and then shoot that at us, like with the 120. You do whatever you want. I just think that for me, it would sound better, because when I saw it, I saw 250 and I was like, are they applying for the whole 250 to do all of those different projects? I was like, oh, like, so for me it would be easier for me to better understand. It's like, if we're applying for the 125, this is what we want to accomplish with what we're applying for. Because I mean, you need the money, right, to do this stuff, I guess. But yeah, we just didn't want to put the whole burden on the CPA, and we were pretty confident that if we were assertive in how we asked for funds, that we could get the whole project matched. Just because I think if we prioritize something first, it would be the repainting, because that is the biggest chunk of money to get that done. You can't piecemeal that out. You either have to go big or go home with that. So if that makes sense, but we're trying to shore up the whole exterior to protect it for longevity, and both of those things really need to be completed. So that's why we kind of thought we would do this as a whole exterior project and try to complete that this year. But yeah, the repainting is probably the biggest ask
for.
I mean, I saw repointing at like 4,500. You could squeeze that in probably with the.
Oh no, that's just one. That's just chimneys. So the repointing of the
Okay. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, the chimney we're going to do regardless. Like we have to get that work done. But we also have to do foundation work, and there's a couple other chimneys that are a cause for concern. But we're trying our best to just sort of lock up the exterior and protect it as much as possible, so then we can keep it safe for years to come. But yeah, so that's where we're at with that. But the chimney has to get done right away. That's something that we've already been talking to people about estimates for getting that work done.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, and any questions or comments from the public?
Nope, I don't see any here.
All right. Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Sealer, and looking forward to seeing all the great work you do at Wisteriahurst.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to our next applicant, which is the Miracle League Playground for All.
Hey everybody, so I'm Carrie Parsons. I'm with the Miracle League of Western Massachusetts. If you don't know us, we're a 501c3 that is an organization who provides the game of baseball and runs an organized baseball league for kids with disabilities, cognitive and or physical. I'm going to share my screen. I have a few visuals for you guys just to take a peek at while I'm talking. So that's us. So a little bit about us. Like I said, we're a baseball league that runs baseball for the kids with disabilities. We were founded in 2015 by Tammy Fitzel and Ernie Fitzel. And we started out playing actually in Holyoke at Dean Tech on the dirt field. And it was a mainstream baseball diamond, and that's not really conducive to what our players need. So we now are playing at Springfield College. It is a rubberized turf. Our pitcher's mound has no hills. Our baseball, our plates are painted on the field, so there's no obstruction. So anybody with a wheelchair or a glider can move with ease on the field. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll and do this. So that's another thing for you to look at. So our mission is to make sure that all kids have the ability to play baseball and that they are able to be included, but not just in baseball, in daily life activities. Our current mission is to build an all-inclusive playground for children of all abilities in our community. And our hope is to call it the Miracle League of Western Mass Playground for All. Our inclusive playground will make it easier for children with disabilities to play with their typically developing peers and siblings. The playground for all will naturally lend itself to multi-generational play, allowing children, regardless of their developmental status, to safely play with their loved ones. This is another picture of one of our kids. I'll give you, can actually pull up the outline of our field. So this is a blueprint, a mock-up of what our designer put together for us. This is what we are planning for it to look like, the colors and everything like that. So our playground is designed to welcome everyone, and it supports 5 fundamentals. The first is to provide multisensory play experiences. The second is to encourage all children to play. The third is to allow greater accessibility. The fourth is to ensure kids to not get overwhelmed. And the fifth would be to create welcoming and social environments. There are playgrounds like this. We've seen them in Westfield at Amelia Park, and there's one in Belchertown, but we don't have one in the city of Holyoke. So our hope is to build this playground at Kennedy Field on Lincoln Street, in the section of the field that's not currently in use, which is right here. And we are a small organization, so we've been holding annual fundraisers for the past several years. We've been able to raise just about $100,000 to support the project. And one of our largest supporters is the Holyoke Rotary Club. They have pledged to us $30,000. So I can show you this. These are a couple different pieces of our playground so you can see what is so special about it and why children with all abilities will be able to play. So this is our Alta glider. As you can see, it has room for 2 wheelchairs, as well as anybody who does not need any assistance. There are chairs on it. The push and pull motion helps kids develop balance and coordination. Right underneath right here is our inclusive whirl that also has room for 2 wheelchairs. It also has a seat for anyone who does not have any mobility issues. The rails are tilted, so kids of different heights or ages are able to hang on and be on it securely. Go back to this. This is another view of our park. It's the same park, just a little bit different view. You can see there are the swings right here. Those are our inclusive swing seats. So those allow kids to be in there safely, upright, and they don't get pulled against gravity. The right here is the whirl that we just looked at right there. If you scroll down a little bit more. Right here, this thing that looks a little bit kind of like a rainbow, that's called the concerto. So that's basically a musical instrument that invites kids of all abilities, kids who you know, have sensory issues and like the music, and adults and kids who don't have any issues, sensory or physical, they're invited to just play together, you know, play music together and come together and all play as one. Let's see right here. What's one other thing here? Right here, this is a younger child, more like a toddler area for kids of all abilities. And we also have this, I don't know if you can see my mouse circling it right here. That is a really cool, it's a new feature that our builder and our equipment person has come out with. And we call it the car wash, but it's called Odyssey Hall. So this feature has hanging treads, and it provides deep touch, while vertical rotating panels provide texture and color variety. The twisting treads enable multiple play paths, and a wheelchair path ensures everyone is given the chance to explore. So that's new, and we thought that was a really cool feature. But most of all, the playground we think is really important, because sometimes people don't think about, things that we can do every day with ease. And, you take for granted that you may be able to climb to the top of a playground, and that's something you can do every day, but not everybody can do that. So the Miracle League Playground for All, it's going to allow every child to feel that excitement and the sense of accomplishment to, just to do just that, to get to the top, to play with other kids, to not feel like they're different. And we just really think that the city of Holyoke would benefit from having an inclusive playground. So that is all I have. It's a little picture of one of our players thanking you for your support. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Now, this is on the site of the old Highland Elementary School, right?
Right.
Where there's an existing playground.
That's correct. So we are, we had somebody come out and look at a few different parks in Holyoke. And so they looked at Community Field, they looked at Rowan Field and Kennedy. And Kennedy Field was deemed the most appropriate for this kind of park because of the irrigation and the draining and things like that. So this is the current, where it says, you can see the baseball diamond. On the right here is where there's a current playground, and our playground would actually be in this section where there's nothing. There's just the flagpole and the sign, that brick sign for the school that we would of course want to relocate, but that's where the playground would be.
Oh, so I was actually imagining it would replace the existing playground, but it will actually be next to the existing playground.
Right. It's going to be parallel to it, just so we can have an all-inclusive, kids can play. It's not separated. It's not on the other side of the field. They're really going to be almost, joining. They're going to be right next to each other on the paths, and kids can go between the two different playgrounds.
Okay. One of my questions is, it's designed to be an accessible playground. Is there any concerns about accessibility in terms of parking and actually getting folks from their cars to the playground in that
Well,
area?
we would want to designate some handicap parking for sure. But because there are, baseball games there all the time, there seems to be plenty of parking. There's parking on all four sides of the park, and it's all a sidewalk. And that new crosswalk on Lincoln, and I believe it's Nonotuck, has the handicapped accessibility to the sidewalk.
Okay. And then have you been working in coordination with Parks and Rec on this project?
Yeah, we have received a letter of support from the Parks and Rec. We received that in, I believe it was November. So they're in full support of this project as long as we're able to secure the funds for it. And like I said, we as an organization, we're really small, but we have raised about $100,000 towards the playground. So that's why we're applying for the rest. We started raising in about 2016. We started with just a few players and supporters, and we've certainly grown, but we definitely need some help in the process. So that's why we're applying.
And Megan, if I may, I was one of the commissioners at the time when we approved the letter of support. We did it because technically that is city property, and the improvement it kind of falls in line with what some of our goals were when I was on the commission, which is like improving the parks throughout the community overall. Kennedy Field was one of the parks eventually to look at, but obviously it was that. I mean, for us, it was the field, the diamond, and the park that is already existing there,
and very well used.
Right, exactly. And so they've presented this, and we figured why not? They've already raised a good $100,000 of it. Why not support it? It's just figuring out how best to move forward after the fact. But right now, yeah, that's what I want to say when I was on the Commission for Parks and Recs with regards to Parks and Recs.
Because this is on city land, and because it's a city-owned property, my understanding is they'd have to follow all the procurement and prevailing wages.
Yes.
And is that built into the current budget?
So we have, that is not built into this budget shown, but I had talked to Bob Parent, and we talked about first, going over and securing the funds and then looking over how to move forward with that. So we had talked briefly right before a couple weeks ago about that. So we are aware.
I would just want to make sure that we've run into this before with applicants where it can really significantly shift the cost of a project as to make it almost impossible to do without really extensive, additional funding. So I'd like to make sure that this is a project that can happen within your current scope, given the reality of prevailing wage.
We also have been in talks, and, again, just because nothing is secured yet, because we don't have all of the funds, but we have talked to local companies who are certified in building with the ADA playgrounds and accessible playgrounds, who have offered to volunteer services. What scope that is, we're not sure quite yet, but we have discussed that with them, and that's definitely a plan and a part of our plan. We also hope to do some sort of community build once it happens, of course, not the digging and the safety parts, but things like building the slides, and a little bit like what the YMCA did a couple years ago with getting the community involved and getting them excited about, the new playground and things like that. So I think that will also help with that part of the budget.
Mm-hmm. Who is the city employee who was designated by the mayor as the point person?
Bob Parent.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions from other members of the committee or comments of support? Mary? Oh, Moriarty?
Sorry about that. I have two questions. Is the cost of moving the wall part of the the funding, or has that been figured in? And also, what is your timeline?
So that has not been figured in yet because we were not, 100% approved on that. We can certainly get an estimate on that. I believe that the company who has offered to volunteer their services would be doing that part, but that would be up to the city if that's okay with them. And our timeline is, once the funds are secured, we have the blueprints, we have everything. It's a 27-day timeline of the build. I can pull that up for you to show you what that looks like. Of course, it's winter, and obviously this doesn't happen overnight. So from beginning to end, that is a 27-day build.
Helen, you also had a question.
I just as a comment, I'm actually the very, very brand new Parks and Rec rep, taking over from Israel Rivera because he's been elected. And so I just wanted to kind of give just our perspective and just to really kind of emphasize that there's nothing like this in Holyoke. And this is such an incredibly amazing opportunity with, a private group that's gone out and is raising money to have this kind of facility that I think would be amazing. And if you look at those, at the plans, is just so inviting and exciting that all kids are going to want to come and play. And that's, such an incredible way to build community and to build connections between students with young people with disabilities and young people who don't, and just to have this kind of level playing field. And our other parks just are not accessible in the way this is. This is really pretty visionary. And so, I want to just say how much I appreciate the work that's gone in, and hopefully we can make this happen. But I just wanted to comment that on just, I know a lot of details, but just the actual scope of this is really incredible. And I think would really, really benefit so many young people in Holyoke, those who need accessible spaces, but then also kids who don't, and who maybe wouldn't have an opportunity to socialize and to meet kids who have different abilities. And so just really enriching for everyone.
Thank you. And even in siblings too, there may be one sibling who needs some additional help and one without. And for the parent who wants to take their kids to the park, that's heart-wrenching that one child can do this and one child can't. And this is just an all-inclusive playground for everybody. Everybody is, like you said, equal and can play together, and it invites everybody in. And there's nothing like it in Holyoke. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Anyone else want to unmute to speak to the project?
Maribel sent a comment, which I sent to you.
Mm-hmm. Maribel, do you want to share it out loud? Or do you want me to read it?
Yes, no problem.
Maribel had shared that she just thought it was a really great project and was in support of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Michael, final word?
Carrie, it's a very fine project. I'm not sure we can afford it. As you can see, the dollar amount you're asking for is almost half our budget. I was wondering, have you, as a food for thought, of relocating this to an area that is closer to either East Hampton or Northampton, and as a regional approach to it, ask Northampton or East Hampton to kick in $75,000 or $100,000, because this is a great park, no question, but it's not cheap. Right. And if what our budget is for this year, this would eat up half of it in one fell swoop. So I'm not sure we can afford it, no matter how noble and needed it is. But I would think, Carrie, and again, you know how to run this more than I do, I would make it more of a regional approach. And I hope that if there's a planning council or if there's a regional Hampden County group, that funds these things for the region, it would be easier for the city of Holyoke to afford it. And like I said, right now, it's a great project and it's needed, but at that cost is I think a little bit too much. And that being said, I would approach it, well, again, you could approach it any way you want. I would approach it more of a regional request that the surrounding cities and towns are invited to use it. And as such, we have a great location for it, but we need financial help. And regionally, if there's such a council, and I don't know if there is or not, or a funding source, regionally speaking, that because this is something that East Hampton needs, Northampton, Chicopee, surrounding cities and towns ought to have. They don't. I'm not sure they're ever going to want to because of the cost. But we are the poorest city in the state, and this is not a cheap endeavor. So I would think, Carrie, I would think regionally for the funding sources and appeal to any regional councils that may have money to help do this, because quite frankly, I can't see at this point in the ball game supporting this at that price level. Now, maybe next year, if you accepted 100.5 from the CPA, and the year after 100.5, and the year after whatever the balance is, because you are going to have to take down that wall. That would be something I would look at and do it piecemeal. But to try and fund this in one fell swoop isn't necessarily blocking out a whole list of people that want to get their project funded. It's just my initial thinking. And again, it's just a lot of money. Is it needed? Absolutely. But at this cost, again, we're the poorest city in the state, and we're an aging city with aging infrastructure. So I'm not sure we can afford it.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate your thoughts. We've thought about going different places, but our league was born and raised in Holyoke, and a lot of our kids and players are from Holyoke. Not to say that the playground's just for them. It's certainly for kids from, all surrounding communities. We wanted it to be in the heart of Holyoke. We wanted people who didn't have access to personal transportation to be able to get to it and things like that. So we haven't ever really discussed going out towards Northampton or East Hampton. We've been really focused on keeping it in the heart of Holyoke. We love our community, and we want to make Holyoke better and show people that we have great things and things like that, to offer people. So we haven't thought about that. It's a thing, something certainly to think about, and I can understand your concerns. And, going, in a couple of years, if we can get it together, this year, that would be, our ask. But, if we need to do it by piecemeal, we need to do it by piecemeal. The most important part is to get the park built for the kids.
No question. No,
I see Nev Kepron, and I also see Israel Rivera with their hands up. Israel, do you want to go first, and then Nev?
If I may, real quick, and Nev, I'm sorry, I'll give you your time, Nev. Give me a second, real quick. So, like, the project is an awesome project. I think that, like, I hear you, Mr. Falsetti, where it comes down to, like, we're one of the poorest cities, but we're also one of the cities that has, like, one of the highest rate of disabilities within the school systems, right? So, like, to meet some of the needs of the people within the community that we actually serve, like, I get it. It is a lot. The project is huge. Maybe we can't fund it this time around. And if we do, then a lot of other people won't get funded. But the idea is, I want to thank you guys at the Miracle League of Western Mass for actually doing a lot of this legwork, right? Because a lot of it's already in place for something like this if we do decide to move forward with it. And then the other piece is, you may not be able to get all the funds from us here at CPA, but if somehow, some way we can make it where CDBG can fall into that too as well, maybe you can split the funding in between the both of them instead of doing just one funding source, right? Because this is not just going to serve one community, which I believe is Ward 6, right? And it might not fall under CDBG funding. This will also serve kids throughout all over the city. And if we can somehow explain that and elaborate that, I mean, or if you guys can, because you guys are the ones applying for the project, but you guys would have to apply it through the park. So it would be a city project in collaboration with you guys.
Right.
So overall, it's thank you for applying, because this is something that is well needed here in Holyoke. And if it doesn't happen this way around, I would like to work on trying to help you guys make it happen. If not, then trying to find a way to advocate for it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ned Capron.
Oh yeah, I was just wanted to say, is like second one Izzy said just about the your percentage of population in the area that have children with disabilities, and I don't really know about the budgetary stuff. I do always think about Growth Food Northampton, where when in Northampton they wanted to, save this historical agricultural land, they were able to raise $500,000 in 6 months. And through in the last campaign cycle, I was up in Ward 7. I'd never been up there, and there's some money in this city that you know what I mean? Like there are businesses and industries, and I don't know. I don't like to ask for money, but I feel like if you put it out there, maybe to different businesses and stuff, and they would kick in, and maybe pull the amount that you need. Pull it down, reduce it, because I've seen one of these out in Toledo, Ohio. And they're beautiful. And what's different about Toledo, Ohio than what has happened here in Massachusetts is we don't have county government, we don't have county taxes, we don't have local taxes on people's wages, and that's why there is no regional entity, right? Like we got rid of county government in the 90s, and out there a lot of stuff like this is funded by county government. But I think these are fantastic, and I think it's really would benefit the community past things.
Thank you. And so just as everybody else, COVID hit everybody hard. All of our fundraisers were, put to a halt like everybody else. So, we potentially could have had additional funds, but, we had to put everything on hold. Our things are starting back up for 2022. Hopefully we're not stopping the fundraising for sure. Especially when you have a budget, you usually go over. So we're aware of that. And we're, still certainly seeking out the funds and holding our fundraisers that we usually do. So, so we're still trying for sure.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. We are going to move to our next applicant. I'm going to move to the Gloutak Woods Trail Improvements.
Hi, everyone. Let's see if I can share screen. Great. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. My name is Yoni Glogauer. I'm Holyoke's Director of Conservation and Sustainability. I'm going to be presenting the first of our 2 project applications for the evening, trail improvements at Gloutak Woods in Holyoke. Shared some pictures here of some wildflowers that I found, pink lady slipper and polygala, fringe polygala. So a little bit of history on Gloutak Woods. This was Holyoke's first CPA open space project in 2019. Very exciting. It's located in Rock Valley neighborhood of Holyoke between Rock Valley Road and Mountain Road. It's a little over 51 acres. And I always like to give some ecological context. I think it's pretty important. This is this is an important part of the city to protect. Sort of provides connectivity between the East Mountain Wildlife Management Area, Holyoke Water Supply Land, and other conserved land in Southampton. So, and you can see the system of wetlands that goes through. You can see it a little more clearly on this map. This is a wetland, stream and vegetated wetland system that connects to Broad Brook and Holyoke, which is one of our major streams. So really exciting, able to partner with Kestrel Land Trust, who holds a conservation restriction on this property. And I wish I had more pictures of the beautiful trail system that already exists here. what I've spent a lot of time doing is working on our issues with illegal ATV at trespass. It's great that there was already a well-developed trail system here that goes through mature upland, hardwood, oak forests. There's a hemlock tree that I think is about 150 years old. Pretty amazing. It clearly existed from a time when the land was mostly cleared. So amazing ecological resources and supposed to benefit the community for hiking. But what we found over the years of doing baseline reports and documenting the borders of the property is that not all the trails are in the right place. And especially in two locations at the north, there's persistent illegal ATV trespass. It goes through some sensitive wetland areas. Here's my colleague at Kestrel Land Trust, Stu Watson. We went around the entire property and posted Holyoke Conservation Commission markers and no ATV signs at the point of access. But, you know, not to dwell on that too much, but we recognize the need for a little while now to do some important trail improvements, bridge crossings, and try and cut off some of these points of access so that it can be its own self-contained unit, and that make it really a place that we can advertise more broadly to the public and make clear that it's a resource that's available to them for recreation. So you can't see very well, they're small, but about every 40 feet around the boundary, we put Holyoke Conservation Commission markers. Oh, all right. So here's the basic map of what we're looking to do at Gloutak Woods. We got some consultation and advice, and Conservation Commission has reviewed the plans. And this is what we'd like to do there to, again, this was protected with the interest of making it a sanctuary that's available to the public to visit. And this is what we'd like to do to really make it a lovely nature experience for everyone. Orange areas are where we would propose rerouting sections of the trail. You can see the topo lines here, where in the yellow is the current trail. It goes up some pretty steep terrain, likely to cause more erosion over time, not so accessible and steep. So by making a little switchback in these two areas, it'll give us a trail system that more closely matches the natural grade of the landscape. Here are some areas, those pictures I showed, this is where ATVs are getting in. It's an issue we've been talking about with this cemetery that's up here and some local landowners, and trying to come up with a community-oriented solution. So what we'd like to do is actually cut off those points of access, fill them with brush, and plant seedlings there. And hopefully by promoting more intended uses of the space, we can hopefully discontinue that activity in the future. I showed you the map with wetland areas. Here are 3 areas we'd like to build some crossings. In some cases, these are bog bridges. We can harvest eastern hemlock directly from the site and lay them across. And in other areas, like here to the north, we'd like to construct a proper crossing. Here are 2 more points where the trail grows off property onto private property. We'd like to avoid any other incidences where visitors to the site are confused or accidentally trespass. So we're proposing that we loop this back around on itself within the property. And finally, we'd like to install a kiosk with a map of the site, indicating where all the trails are located. So I have to talk a little bit about procurement law. We were interested and still are interested in hiring a firm that'll bring on local Holyoke high schoolers to do the work, a nonprofit organization or a landscaper. What we're going to have to do is put this out to bid. It's given the budget that's under $50,000. What we can do is solicit 3 quotes from firms, And we can strongly recommend that they hire local Holyoke youth from historically marginalized communities to do the work. So that's really what this budget is based on. I just have to be upfront that that's the legal process that we would have to follow for this project. Hopefully this work could take place this summer. It would be really great to get the trail system up and running and really promote this to the public more fully. We've gotten great feedback from people who have already been visiting the site. But again, we need to do a little more work to make sure it's a really accessible space and a pleasant and an enjoyable experience. So what we're hoping, and I put this before the Community Preservation Committee, if there is interest in funding our project, we're requesting if there's any possibility of speeding up the normal timeline somewhat. Obviously, you're not making any decisions tonight, but we would really like to have a city council bring this to the city council for their vote of approval if the funding is approved sometime in March or April at the latest. And that's to give us time to go out to bid and do that process. This will have to be reviewed by the Conservation Commission, Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. They're going to have to be written a comment letter because it's in rare and endangered species habitat. There's going to be ordering of building materials. It's all very doable within this timeline, but the request would be to slightly speed things up so that we can hit the ground running in the early spring. And then I've attached what I think is a pretty modest budget. Most of the cost is direct crew costs or wages. Again, we're hoping this can be local Holyoke teenagers so that the majority of this funding goes right back to the community. And we've also budgeted for a van rental in case the firm that's hired is able to do that work. And then small minimal amounts for bridge materials, an arborist to do some of the cutting, construction of the bog bridge, and an Appalachian Trail style kiosk that would be at the entrance. And here's an eastern toad that I found on the property, just to round out this slide a little bit. So thanks for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions. Maybe I'll go back to the slideshow.
Very excited about the idea of the trail creation and maintenance being done by Holyoke youth. I think that's a really great feature of this project. Are there any other comments or questions from the committee? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to just kind of chime in. I was really, I want to commend you on the way you've really kind of kept your eye on this particular conservation part of the city, because it's kind of shocking. I read through the application, the amount of junk and debris that you cleaned out of there. It's really disheartening to see how people can really destroy, beautiful land like this. So I think it's very important that we continue to support this project, and we make sure we have resources to make sure it stays cleaned up. And we do get those who are kind of violating it through all sorts of means of vehicles on that property, unable to really get in there. But it's just amazing when I read the list of stuff that was dumped there. Very disappointing.
Yeah, that Kestrel staff person was very detailed with that baseline report. It's impressive. Yeah, most of that's been cleaned up now.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments or questions from the committee or from the public?
I just want to reiterate what was said, but I mean, just in terms of this very modest amount for materials, really the bulk of this is funds that would really directly impact young people, who need to work in the summer and get this great opportunity to kind of give back to the city. And so it just really feels like an investment in our open space and in recreation and in our young people. And so I thank you so much for putting this together.
Thank you.
Nev Kapran?
Oh yeah, I was wondering, is there any in this like actual accessible trails? Like, will there be any sort of, creating a trail that's like gravelly or you know what I mean, like or wooden, where people with wheelchairs or people with accessibility issues would have access?
That's a great idea. I don't think it was part of the original proposal, but if we go back, actually, there is a route. Actually, here, this stretch here is pretty flat and level. It's grassy. We could consider adding wood chip mulching to the trail there and make it, a little more structurally sound for that type of use. I think that's something we could get wood chips from the DPW and do that at no cost, no additional cost to CPA, that is.
John,
idea.
Perderzet, is that how you pronounce your last name?
That's me. Thank you. I'm on the Conservation Commission, and I just wanted to emphasize the amount of time and detail that Yoni has put into these projects and how much it's benefiting the whole city, ecologically, environmentally, and when we get kids on these trails and get them out of the city and into the woods, it's going to make a difference in the future. And we really obviously all know that that's so critical now. So thank you, Yoni, for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, very exciting stuff. All right, do you want to move on to your second presentation?
Sure, let me reorient myself. All right. Hi, everyone. It's me again. This is our second proposal. This is a project we've been working on with Kestrel Land Trust for the past year and a half or so. And I want to note that Mark Wamsley from Kestrel Land Trust is also here as a representative for the project. So he's also available to help answer any questions that folks have. So I want to recap the funding we got last year and what's been done to date. I think everyone deserves a little update, of course. So if you recall, this was $175,000 from the Community Preservation Committee. We were filed an emergency application so we could move quickly to protect 14.1 acres north of the park. Kestrel is still holding on to those parcels. We're still waiting on Land and Water Conservation Fund to come through with the other 50% of the funding. I think we're about to pass the 1-year anniversary of sending in the 60-page grant application for that funding. Hasn't been denied yet. It's likely going to come through, but there have been some issues with the National Park Service side of things reviewing all the LWCF projects for Massachusetts. So still delayed, stay tuned, but we're hopeful it'll work out soon and we can complete that transaction. So the good news though is the CPA ask also included $25,000 for starting a preliminary site design process. We wanted to get started with site concepts, build in community input every step of the way, and really put together, sort of a master plan that would help us budget for future grant applications so we can start to move forward with that process. So we had some fun with this process that occurred mostly over the fall. We hired GCA Geoenvironmental to oversee the work. We had a really fun community vision event on October 9th. This was in addition to our online survey, which has gotten 450 responses so far, with a lot of great ideas for what people would like to see at the park. I don't know exact numbers, maybe 80 people trickled through over the course of it. We had all sorts of activities. We did a guided walk up to the top of Scott Tower. We looked at this cool engraving stone in memory of Walter Scott, who donated the land in 1924. Joking here. We had activities for all ages. We had a color in your own version of Scott Tower for young folks. This is my favorite one. I don't know who the artist was, but I think it's a great concept for reimagining Scott Tower. I don't know what the budget's going to be for that, but I would love to see a giant clown and giant slide up there if we can make it happen. There was a mood board and then guided walk up to Scott Tower. So we've been working with community input to put together this master plan. And, you know, that is unfortunately for the timeline of CPA funding, it's just now being completed. So what I can share were the main findings, but it's going to be another few weeks before we have those drawings, which we intend to bring back for the community for another round of community input now that we have some stuff on paper and can look at the concepts together. But what we're moving towards at this stage is focusing on the entrance, improvements to the trail system, and the historic CCC era stone architecture. We want to build, you know, envisioning the possibility of a future parking lot up here on this parcel, an ADA accessible trail to Scott Tower. We're looking at other points of access to the park, nothing finalized yet. Again, we want to bring this back to the community for further input. And so that's where we are right now. Here's a, we really got our money's worth out of GZA. Just for fun, Anya, our engineer, did this colored pencil drawing, reimagining the entryway to Anniversary Hill Park from Community Field under I-91. And the idea is to make it a more inviting thing in a way that we can arrange boulders and bollards, and a cool, funky kiosk to make it a more inviting entrance, but still make it clear that car access is not allowed except for maintenance or emergency vehicles, maintaining the pedestrian feel of going up to Scott Tower. Met so many folks now who love walking their dogs up there. I think a lot more people have discovered it in the age of COVID. So that's where we are right now. And, you know, here's an example of some stuff that might be repaired in that early phase. We're just restoring the stone architecture. There's a lot of old picnic tables from a bygone era that could be cleaned up and removed. Again, like pretty straightforward stuff that would help beautify the space and help encourage more people to spend time in the park. But that wouldn't really be doing anything dramatic to the tower itself or changing the landscape or how it's accessed for this initial phase one. So where are we now? We're in kind of a lull in between phase. Fortunately, Kestrel was awarded funding from the Beveridge Foundation for further community engagement. So again, our plan is to take these initial site concepts and we're putting together a continued public engagement process. And again, we're trying to design it in a way that centers youth at the putting youth at the center of the decision-making and consideration process. We'll be engaging with all types of folks in Holyoke, but making that a priority is something we're currently exploring. And we're in discussions with Eagle Eye Institute to see if they could help us lead that effort. But, you know, while that's going on, as I mentioned, we're starting to apply for grants now, a variety of grants that I'll show you on the next slide to help us hit the ground running once that process has been completed and we have a good vision. And then we can really start to do site design in earnest, some early construction in 2023. So where we find ourselves at the moment is kind of an in-between phase, but we'd like to keep things moving however we can. So the goal of this task of CPA is another modest amount. We're asking for only $30,000. And that's going to mostly go towards a site planning survey no matter what construction takes place or what changes we put in, we're going to need a survey of the property that's very detailed in terms of the property boundaries, the existing impervious surfaces and features, and very exact locations. We have that in the preliminary site design, but we need something that can be construction quality that we can work from once we start doing that. And then we're also, part of that 30,000 we hope is also going to go towards landscape design. So as we're doing community engagement, which we consider another part of this current phase and process, which is why we consider the funds from Beveridge Foundation actually a match for this effort. We'd like to start to plan out some of these trails, particularly our idea of a ADA accessible trail to Scott Tower from what we hope will be a future parking area. So here's the budget that we're going through. I think I mentioned in the application, we expect fully that all of these funds would be expended in 2022. And here I've just listed some of the grants that we're shooting for using our preliminary site designs. And really the goal is by November, we hope to have the survey done. We hope to have done a robust second phase of public engagement. And they're expecting to hear back from these and other grant funding opportunities. These include another round to Land and Water Conservation Fund. Just submitted that. I wrote the date here wrong. It was actually submitted on the 24th of January. So just recently. Look at that. We've got Mass Trails due next Tuesday. So that's exciting. We're very busy. CDBG funds could be accessed for this project. They were used for part of the renovation of Community Field. We think it would be a great fit for this project. There's also a new once in a lifetime EDA opportunity with its own tranche of ARPA funding for tourism and outdoor recreation. And through initial conversations with that agency, we think our project could also be a good fit for that. So again, happy to answer any questions. Sorry if I've gone a bit over the 5-minute limit that I was trying to keep to, but I just wanted to share where we are with the project, exactly what the funds would be used for. And, we hope by November we'll have a good sense of what funding we've secured. And hopefully at that point, if we need a little extra to put us over the top for a solid phase 1, we'll have that in hand and can discuss our those needs at that point with the Community Preservation Committee next December. So, all right. I'm going to stop talking, but thank you so much for your consideration.
Yes, you've been very busy, I can see. Is there any question or a comment that anyone wants to make about this second application? Michael Falsetti?
Yoni, is the Scott Tower structure itself and the surrounding park, is that on the City of Holyoke's historical list of historical building and grounds?
It is not.
It's what?
It is not. Not to my knowledge. No.
It is named in our preservation plan, though, for the CPC, Michael.
Right.
As an important historic resource.
Yeah, but it's so by definition, you can't go back. You can't apply if the Historic Commission has any money. Does that necessarily mean you can't apply to the Holyoke as a separate source? That this is actually should be considered an historic building and the park, an historic park, by the virtue of its function and its founding and its construction. Is that something you folks might have want to think about to make it historic by applying for such recognition?
We've talked about it. So again, you'll get to see the preliminary site design soon when they're finished. Our concern is that if we did that, it would limit what we're able to do to restore the tower. If we want to make it accessible or add ramps, I think we're considering the possibility that the tower itself might have a different obviously still the center point of the park, but that we might build around it in a way that makes it more accessible. And we're worried that going for that designation might limit our possibilities in that regard.
So by definition, just this is an aside, Madam Chairman, forgive me for taking up this time. If you had a historic building and it was on, say, the Natural Historic Register and you were required to make it ADA compliant, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not an expert on the historic register, but
or any state, with the state of Massachusetts or the city of Holyoke. Say,
when we get to that point, we'll certainly have to pursue it with the Historic Commission, although I do want to be aware of time, that it's just outside the scope of the current application. Are there any other comments in support of this project or any other questions? Moriarty?
So I want to reiterate what John said, what John Kelly and John Jose said in regards to Gloutak, and that I want to thank Yoni for his diligence on both of these projects and on his having produced a presentation that made it clear for all of us to see and understand. And I'm in support, of course, of both of these projects. Thank you.
All right. I think I was muted when I was speaking.
Huh.
And nobody said anything? Come on, people.
I was muted too.
Okay. We're going to move now to an applicant from the YMCA for additional recreation space for community use.
Thank you very much. This is Kathy Beans. I'm going to share my screen. Have a very brief presentation for everyone. Let's switch this to slideshow. Doesn't seem like it wants to go all the way to slideshow, so let's see. Oh, anyway, everyone can see my screen, I believe, so we're gonna move to that. Basically, I want to thank you, first of all, for giving us an opportunity to present and for considering our application. Our YMCA basically, is here to help everyone in the community achieve their fullest potential. We have been in existence for a number of years. I'm going to just try to move my slides along. It's being a little stubborn. Might be partly asleep by now. Hopefully everyone else is not. So basically the Y was established in Holyoke in 1885. It is a community-based, volunteer-led organization. Those volunteers are really from Holyoke, South Hadley, Granby, and they are very dedicated to providing the best possible services and infrastructure and location we possibly can. We have been in the downtown area of Holyoke since our inception, as you should be aware. We, on a daily basis, serve approximately 120 different children in our current preschool and out-of-school time programming. We have been doing this for a number of years, and specifically through COVID, especially outdoor activity has been really important to get people out in the air and keep them as safe and healthy as possible and provide a great environment for them. The one thing with the Y that is true is no one is going to be turned away for lack of being able to afford the Y. We will provide whatever assistance they need. Our people we serve are from primarily Holyoke in these programs, and many come from low income homes or low income housing. When we started the project of looking at our outdoor space and what could we do to enhance it, we kind of talked to the kids, and they were really dreaming of something bigger than what we have. And more importantly, not just for our kids, but for our neighbors who surround the YMCA and for the families that use the Y. So we have been building, program and working to build an area that's great for outdoor play and activity for children up to age 14. We really want to encourage the health and wellness of children. As you should be aware, children in Holyoke have many health issues, including obesity, asthma. Physical activity is really a really big key to keeping them and getting them in better shape. We want to work to create a level surface of play that is safe and inviting. And right now, when I show you photos, you'll see that it doesn't quite look that way. We do engage people who are members of the Y, who are non-members of the Y, and people who are our neighbors. And also provide space that can be used year-round, especially in the summer. So we looked at doing some space to shade. So in 2019, we started this project. This is what the property looked like in 2019. We had a very small playground, and we had an open field, and you can see the condition of the grass area of the open field. What we have found is it's very uneven, and because at one time it was a parking lot and there was a home and a structure on part of this, that we have bricks, glass, rocks that are coming up and through the surface. So we deal with that on a daily basis. In 2019, we were fortunate. We were able to get in a partnership with Kaboom, which is a grant-funded organization, and worked with them to design, lay out, and build, ultimately, a playground that brought our playground up to standards of today. This was done with the help of over 200 volunteers. Many of those volunteers were community members, YMCA members, families that had children in our program, as well as some businesses and area surrounding staff who came and provided help. We even had the sheriff's department there helping us with some of this work. And you can see the difference in what it looks like in these photos compared to what it looked like initially. We are now looking at our next phase, and our next phase has two parts. One is to create a toddler play space, which will require us to have a fenced-in area specific for toddlers. We need to make that surface flat and safe. We'd like to put some interactive playground items in that area and also move a sandbox into that space. The second half is more of a multi-purpose open recreation space, which is going to be more of a flat surface that can be used for a variety of activities, including some walking paths, a little bit of biking, really for young kids. This would not be a bike surface for older people. Outdoor exercise space so that we can take some of our fitness programs in the spring, summer, and fall and bring them outside into the fresh air. Trees with shading, so in the summer as the kids are outside playing, they can enjoy the outdoors. And then really it's the synthetic turf surface that we really would like to put in place so that it can withstand the high use. We have done work on this property before and done some simple grass and seeding. With the number of children that are on it on a daily basis, it doesn't necessarily hold up for that type of traffic. So our current conditions now are, you can see in the first photo, we have an orange fence. That fenced area would be the area that we would use for preschool. Currently, we are using that for our toddler program. We now offer preschool. We offer a toddler program for ages 2, which prior to this point, we did not. Until they age up to age 4, the other playground is not the appropriate playground for them. Our licensing requires us to fence in an area. The temporary fence is truly temporary. We're hoping to be able to address that preschool space this year and get that taken care of. The second half is the grassed area that you see on the opposite side. And that's really that open play space that we'd like to be able to level that surface and create that multi-purpose use space for children to be able to be on a regular basis. This is just a conceptual drawing at this point in time. We have spoken with our current landscaping company They gave us an estimate of what they believe the cost would be, which is what we have put forward for our application. We are hoping that we can build something that is going to withstand a lot of use, be open and able to be used year round, and is going to withstand that traffic that we know we're going to bring out there with 120 children on a daily basis. Our preschool goes out twice a day, typically to play outdoors. Our out of school time, after school, they're out there. And then during the summer, we pretty much have children out on this playground from about 8:30 or 9 in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. We also take advantage in the summer of Avery Field, which is 2 blocks away. But we also find that especially for out of school time and after school time, Avery Field is not as usable for us as we would need it to be. So that we are looking really to kind of create that future type of safe play space that has a surface that can withstand traffic and withstand the use that we know it's going to get. You know, the benefits really for us is it's going to expand on the initial playground that we have and really create a great space right on our property for children to enjoy. It's going to create a space that we can use for our adults and seniors for outdoor programming. It's going to allow our neighbors to come over and continue to play. We do have families that live across the street that come and use the current playground area. I'm sure they would take advantage of the rest. And that dedicated toddler space, which in downtown, there is no dedicated toddler play area in our area at all. So for us, we are really looking for your support to be able to take this project and move forward and take step 2 and step 3 and make it a reality. I know that Izzy's biggest question has been, how does this affect the community? So I'm going to help you out, Izzy, and you won't have to come off of mute. I will say from my perspective and from a WISE perspective, the 120 children that we serve are truly from families, probably 80 to 100 different families who live in Holyoke currently. Those are the people that are going to benefit from this. They're going to benefit every single day. This is very similar to a project that was funded by this group for the Boys and Girls Club for the park across the street from the Boys and Girls Club, which I know gets great use from that neighborhood and from that facility. We're looking pretty much for the same type of opportunity to bring these services and open them up and make sure that our families, the families who live in Holyoke, are really going to be able to have a great place to go outside and play on a regular basis. We know the surface needs to be addressed, and that's really the majority of the cost is the actual surface piece. So I'll just say thank you for taking time to listen. I know it's been a long night for us, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions people may have at this time.
I would just say thank you for for answering that and not making me have to ask the question. And thank you for the presentation too as well, because I know that it takes a lot to come and do this piece. Thank you.
Kathy, is there a way that this project could be staged over time, or is this like it has to be done all at once?
I'm going to say I have the utmost belief that either way we're going to have to stage it over time unless we get full funding. And each day supplies are getting harder to secure, costs are going up, and we're really trying to honor that. We don't want to overspend on anything that we do. As I mentioned during the presentation, we would concentrate first on that preschool play area, get that fenced. There's some concrete barriers that we should put up on the Beach Street side of the playground so that if there was ever an issue with a car, they would not be able to access the car onto the play area. That's something that is really recommended in our licensing. The preschool space, I have not gotten a price on really what that means. I think the biggest piece I look at is it's a surface that is going downhill. So there's going to have to be really a barrier break of how do they take that step from one level down to the next. But to your point, we would look at the preschool piece first, and I would have to look at what can we do there and what what would be the overall cost. And at this point in time, I'm just finding I could ask this question again of my landscaper to look, and the price is going to have moved again just because of availability and materials at this point in time. So I think, we could definitely do this in pieces, and we are definitely looking at other funders that could possibly help support this too, because we know that outdoor space will be really valuable and really appreciated by many.
Absolutely. Any other questions from the committee?
I had a question. I just, it sounds great that, the folks in the community are able to use the space that there's there now. And if you covered this already, I apologize for not everything sticking in my head. So, but in terms of, it's on YMCA property.
Yes.
And so is it open? Would that be kind of open, accessible 24 hours a day? Is it get locked at night? Is it weekends available? I guess just that's the question, is just, and it's not a public park, so, which they're not open 24 hours anyway, but just how the accessibility works for the community.
So for us, we don't have locks on any of the gates currently. People can come and go as they would like. What we do ask is that when our children are out there, just due to licensing, we cannot be sharing the space with the public. So that is the one challenge that comes with this. That said, we try to, as much as possible, work with parents if they're out there and just let them know, here's the times we're going to be using the space. As far as weekends, days we're closed, holidays, it is open, it's accessible. We've been taking care of the property since inception. Our plan is to continue to take care of the property. So really the investment would be in the actual build, not in the overall management and care of it from that point forward.
Yeah, I do remember that with the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club project 2 years ago, that it was really important for us to really name what public access looked like, right? And what hours there was really public access, because that's so clearly linked to public benefit. And so I think that would be really important from our perspective.
I think we'd be happy to do that. It would be different during the school year than it would be on holidays or vacation days or full summer day activity. But typically we've had people on there up until about 10 o'clock in the morning. People have been back in there by 5 o'clock at night. And that's really typically when the families have been home, is before and after work hours. We haven't had very much time that we've overlapped during the day with families looking to use the space. Other questions?
Well, thank you so much for coming and presenting, and we wish you the best of luck with your awesome playground design.
Thank you for the opportunity to present, and I hope that you see value in what we're offering to the community and are supportive of our work. Thank you again.
All right. Eileen, do you want to quickly share about the bronze tablet that was funded through the small grants process?
Sure. Again, I'm Helene Busby. I'm very brand new. I'm the Parks and Rec to this committee, and I am here. This is to just describe an update about where we are on a project that's already been funded. Because of time, I will try to kind of go quickly. And I'm just gonna just summarize the information I was given. This is a bronze plaque to in the memory of Myriam Miranda, and I am more recent to Holyoke, so she's not somebody I met, but I know that I'm sure there's people on who are participating who, could speak to the incredible impact she had on the city, better than I. But unfortunately, she was shot, and after giving years and years of service and support to the community, she's raised in the flats and just very connected to Holyoke. And in her memory, her family organized the Stop the Violence basketball tournament at Ely Court basketball at the Ely Court basketball court for 2 decades, and just a really incredible that as a memorial to somebody who gave so much. And so in 2019, those basketball courts were dedicated in her memory. Again, just like that connection between memorializing the people in the community that have given the most, and in a way that has been so positive with the Stop the Violence basketball tournament. And so the plaque is ready to go. It's in the final step. It's in the final step, and to be unveiled, and it will say, "In loving memory of Myriam Miranda, December 26, 1957 to February 19th, 2003, a mother, fearless leader, fighter, kind-hearted, brave soul who dedicated her life to family and her community." This is very beautiful. And so the bronze, it's been ordered, and it should be on its way. And I imagine there'll be some sort of additional event to kind of unveil it. That is what I know, and I think this has already sort of been discussed. So I don't know if there's much more information required, but just wanted to let everyone know that is moving forward.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
If I can add to help elaborate some more, because I was kind of one of the leading people with regards to the project. I didn't want to cut Helene off because she's the rep for Parks and Rec now. So she did a pretty good job explaining as much as she could with being new to Holyoke and all that piece. So Myriam Miranda, she's the mother of a good friend of mine. Well, a couple of good friends of mine, Reynaldo Rivera, Luis Rivera, Dolby Rivera, Chaneta Rivera. There's a bunch of them. They're all brothers and sisters, a family of about 8 or 9. She used to take in, she was like a community mother in the flats when we were growing up. She helped the community before my era and my era, right? And I remember frequently visiting her house, eating food, and the door was open door policy for anybody. In the flats neighborhood, there's a variety of different things going on at the same time. And she used to try to, from what I remember, she used to try to keep the community tightly knit. She used to organize a variety of volleyball tournaments back then, basketball tournaments. So she was an organizer when I was probably 8, 9 years old, and I watched it in the process, but it was on the other side of the flats. I grew up in Thetford Apartments. Anyways, so with regards to the story, one of her kids was about to get shot, and somehow, some way, she found her way to be able to block and save the life of one of her sons. And she tragically lost her life that day, and ever since, I believe it's 2001, 2002-ish it happened. Ever since then, her oldest son, Reynaldo, has been organizing the Stop the Violence tournament. It's been going on for almost 20 years now, I believe. And his, so its home base has been at the Center Street basketball court, which for years it hasn't had any attention or upkeep or upgrade. And then finally, a bunch of us were able to organize with Alex Morris to be able to get him to dedicate some CDBG funding to the court. Once he dedicated the CDBG funding to the court, we were able to advocate to get the court named after her. So that way the tournament actually has a home for the tournament every summer. So now we're just trying to get the plaque like any other court or field that's in the city to get it named after her. So the basketball court would be Miranda basketball court at Ely Park, because the park is already named after Ely. So this is something cool for me and at least for me, right? And a lot of people that I know. There is plans for the summertime to actually organize another basketball tournament around the time that they're going to put the plaque up. So that way it can be a twofold event. And they're actually in talks with Holyoke Housing to run a dual tournament, because usually the tournament runs with younger and older kid age group. But now, since Holyoke Housing just built a brand new basketball court in the Tefford Apartments, trying to collaborate with them to do the younger kids at that court and the older kids at Center Street Court. So that way you're having simultaneous games happening all. So ultimately what I'm saying is, because of this, there's a lot of great stuff happening in that community, especially in the Flats community. And thank you guys all for that, because I wasn't here to vote for it. But just some background on that piece.
Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like an amazing plan. Is there anyone who wants to share anything about this project? I think it was great hearing from the both of you. All right, we're going to move into our last two applicants. So two projects, of course, have already been funded. The bronze tablet for Myriam Miranda basketball court at Ely Park was funded through the small grants process. And the $60,000 for the Lady Liberty Monument restoration. Everything else is still in the regular application process and is still being voted. All right, we're going to move to 225 High Street.
Thank you, Megan. This is Dan Knappich with the New England Farm Workers Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
With me is Andrew Melendez, the representative for the Massachusetts Latino Chamber of Commerce, and Heriberto Flores, the CEO and president of the New England Farm Workers, is also with us tonight. And on behalf of the New England Farm Workers Council, I'd like to thank the committee for hosting this opportunity to share our project with you, and we would request respectfully consideration for funding. I've tried to time this to be 5 minutes, so Andrew's in charge. The presentation will kind of fill you in on a lot of the background, but to give everybody kind of a catch up, in 2003, this property at 225 High Street across from City Hall underwent about a $4 million restoration project and was received by the Secretary of the State of the Commonwealth with a Historic Preservation Award. And from that time, when it was opened up as the Latino Professional Business Center, it continued to have a presence on High Street for up until about the year 2015 or thereabouts. Since that time, some of the NEFWC programming and some of the former programming that was done by the Latino Chamber of Commerce at the time had moved down into Springfield due to some consolidations. And today we have very limited activity going on in the building. Go ahead, Andrew, flip it. So the building is considered to be underutilized. It's in obviously a very prominent location, built in 1898. It is got a pre-existing preservation restriction due to the work that was financed previously in 2003 with the state. So the state did have us enter into a restriction agreement for the property. And as I mentioned before, the previous significant renovation was at $4 million. Our proposed reuse of the site is, we were very successful in the state ARPA program of obtaining funding for Holyoke, Chicopee, and Springfield to reactivate the Latino Chamber of Commerce. And in fact, I believe in Holyoke, we leveraged $150,000 through the efforts of Senator Vilas and Representative Duffy to begin the process of being able to provide micro grants, technical assistance, and other associated, what I'd call entrepreneurial supports for emerging minority businesses in Holyoke and subsequently Springfield and Chicopee as well. As part of that activity, it would be housed in 225 High Street. We would also return to the site some additional NEFWC programming for jobs and skills training, and also make the space available for community events. Specifically in our request, two items is, one is the windows to be replaced with a historic restoration or some historic replication of the windows that are presently there. There's 140 of those. The estimate is $225,000. More concerning, though, is the work we need to do to stabilize brick and mortar in the facade, and that work is $54,950. I also included a contingency for engineering and design work at 15%, bringing the CPA requested funds at $321,942.50. To let everybody know, this is just part of the project. The rest of the building needs some additional work. Most significantly of the other work that the building needs is the entire replacement of all the air handling units. The estimated cost there is $285,000. We had gone in front of Acting Mayor Murphy earlier for an ARPA request. We plan on revisiting that with Mayor Garcia a little bit later this year to talk about that. There's also roof repairs in at $62,000. So between the roof and the windows and the brickwork, that would secure the envelope, the building envelope, for another 20 years or thereabouts. NEFWC planned on providing about $56,533 of its own funding to deal with interior renovations that need to be done to make the building occupiable. Why support this program? Well, New England Farm Workers Council last year has paid $86,871 in property taxes. So all of the holdings that NEFWC has within Holyoke, we pay taxes on. And in fact, I think over the last 6 or so or 7 years, the number obviously would be approaching $500,000 or more in property tax payment. Recent demographic trends in Holyoke, the 2020 census indicate that 53.9% of the population is Latino, and then almost 60% of the city's population being minority. So this facility would act as a hub specifically for the Latino population, but also the city in general. And over the past 10 years nationwide, what we do know with the rapid growth of the Latino population across the country, business growth in the Latino community outpaced all others at a rate of 34% to 1%. So that statistic came from the Stanford Business Journal from Stanford University. Additionally, one of the things that we'd like to be able to do is be able to have supports available right in downtown, right across from City Hall, where a lot of other additional consultation and work happens for young businesses. Specifically, what we're looking to do is be able to prospect out and identify businesses from inception to about 2 years, provide them with some technical assistance, some incubator space, and some additional trainings or whatnot that they need to be successful. And then talking to some of the chambers of commerce in the region is try to develop a program where after year 2, we would turn them over to the Chamber of Commerce for additional further business assistance going forward. Already on the ground, on an unofficial level, Andrew in the Massachusetts Latino Chamber has helped a number of businesses apply for ARPA funding. And you can see in the statistic there that 21 businesses were awarded funding on June 24th. So we're already doing some work on the ground in Holyoke. I want to thank the legislative delegation at the state level for providing that great kickstart to our effort. And we're very excited to bring more programming to Holyoke. So additionally, as mentioned before, our number one goal here is to expand minority-owned business presence in downtown Holyoke, grow the tax base, grow current businesses in Holyoke. And there was a good quote here that was listed by WWLP in 2019 that culturally in the Latino community, there's a lot of unity within ourselves. For a community where the majority of the population is Latino, it's important to feel comfortable. And Nairobi Rosa Soriano, a former chamber member, made that quote. And we believe that this facility will fulfill that, much like it was when it was currently activated after the 2003-2004 renovation. It became a very popular building in town, and we hope to revisit that. The beneficiary collectively are the citizens of Holyoke, the surrounding communities, the business community. The proposed project will establish a key location as a vital hub of commerce, culture, and entertainment. And I've been in the business of running municipalities for a number of years, and I can tell you that what's often overlooked is an effort of revitalizing a downtown one building at a time. And certainly this building is in pretty good shape. It needs a little bit of work on it to bring it back to life. And now's the time to do it. I think in a lot of different reasons with coming out of COVID, securing some ARPA funding, a new rebirth is like an awakening in Holyoke with the recent election. New England Farm Workers Council has been on the ground in Holyoke for decades, supporting the population there, and we're looking to come back in 2022 in a big way back to downtown Holyoke. So with that, I would take any questions that the members might have.
I'd like to jump in with a kind of an observation, if you don't mind, on your application.
Sure.
I got the page I'm referencing. It's probably about page 46 of your application package. And it's the estimate for the replacement windows.
Yes.
And I get a little concerned when I see numbers that don't quite, so help me with these numbers. It says here from the Emory Development Limited, you're going to replace 140 windows at $2,500 a window, and that it says $225,000. Well, that math actually comes to $350,000. 140 times 2,500 is $350,000. So either A, this estimate here that came in your application, either A, those windows are actually going to cost $1,607.15 if you divide 225 by 140, or the estimate's $100,000 off. I get a little concerned when I see that big of an error in an application.
I'll have to double check that. I don't have the application in front of me, but Emory Development.
I read the thing where that stuck out. As I say, it stuck out because it's, that's a pretty large error. It's either, what's the real cost of window, or what's the real cost of all the windows? But that to me, I get concerned when I see those mathematical errors of that significance, but that's why I had to just point that out.
Understood.
We will have a meeting coming up in the next 2 weeks. We have a meeting on February 9th. So if it's possible to get information to Amy Landau before then, or if you want to attend the meeting, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I'll revisit the quote with Emory Development.
Okay. Israel Rivera.
My question has to do with the public benefit piece, which you can answer to. And I mean, you kind of did elaborate to that in the whole presentation in bits and pieces. But if you can elaborate to that directly, just so that the people that are here can see that, and then, listen to it. And then the other piece, my question was, in 2003, there was a remodel. And then you guys kind of like centralized a lot of the stuff because you brought all the funds or whatnot, the programming to Springfield or whatnot. Throughout the process from 2003 till now, I guess for me it's like, what you haven't had any ideas of trying to get the building up and running, or to try to utilize the space in other ways? What has caused for it to not be used, I guess, or for any other businesses to be able to be in the space or whatnot? Like, were there any other reasons for barring or for not even just using the space at all? Just to elaborate on it.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor, for that question. I'll answer part two first because it's fresh in everybody's mind. So along in the mid 2010s, like 2015, 2016, thereabouts, the principal director of the Latino Chamber was elected in 2014 to the State House, and that was Carlos Gonzalez. And Carlos was principally responsible for much of the activity of the Chamber of Commerce at that time. Additionally, at that time, NEFWC, different programs that were operating within Holyoke. As you know, oftentimes the government changes tact on the way it does a program, and those programs were no longer funded for what those services were being provided, and we were asked to consolidate the program, and they were a new opportunity came available down, and that caused us to consider withdrawing from Holyoke. But more problematic in that building is the air handlers. And the air handlers, as it's been explained to me, are completely defunct. And in fact, they cannot be repaired or anything. They're using a source of freon, apparently, that's no longer supported under environmental regulations. So we couldn't activate the building for the summertime because there would be no cooling of the building at all. Other than that, the building's in pretty good shape. It's just, that combination of NEFWC losing funding, the Chamber of Commerce losing its principal director, and the air handling system that was not really accounted for in the 2003-2004 upgrade kind of caused us as NEFWC to come back to Springfield, if you will. And unfortunately, we do still operate down the street out of 217. Our workforce development programming is in the building just attached to that complex, but the main building itself was vacated for that reason.
Thank you.
As far as our community benefit, though, one of the things that, number one, it's a very stately building. It's got historic significance in a historic area in Holyoke. It bookmarks the street with a beautiful city hall. To have it sit vacant day after day, night after night, is certainly problematic. And the idea here would be is it becomes like a cultural center, so that during the day there'll be workforce related training. There'll be a site for businesses, and one of the most compelling circumstances that I appreciate working for Mr. Flores is when he discusses with us why we're in the business of owning buildings and property. It's because often in his early career, when he went to go and cite programs and different things in different buildings, he was told, no, we're not going to rent to you and things of this nature. So our mission as part of New England Farm Workers Council is to be able to work, and we don't say no. We work with people that knock on the door. In fact, we're very successful at a facility at 32 Hamden Street, a multi-story building where we bring in a lot of different small, people with an idea. They don't have a lot of money. They put their life savings into things. And we use that building on Hamden Street to incubate a lot of minority business enterprises. And frankly, it's because they couldn't probably go anywhere else because the traditional sources of funding and capital access are problematic for many businesses, particularly minority businesses. And that's our number one mission, is to promote minority business enterprise as part of the Latino Chamber of Commerce effort.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question around letters of support. So I did see 2 letters of support from Senator Vilas, and you have the letter from the Historic Commission. There was also a letter from, I believe, Aaron Vega, the Director of Economic Planning and Development. I also noticed that you had a few organizations that were named in your application as potentially showing interest in the building. And I was wondering what communication looked like or looks like with those organizations, and why there are no letters of support for from different organizations that were named, like the Holyoke Chamber of Commerce and the I think there was a few others in there too.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Amy knows we were kind of late to the game here on putting this project together. At first, when we were looking at reactivating this building, we were looking at trying to fully fund it on our own. And at a very late hour, I made contact with Amy to get an application together. And then with that first step, it was explained to me that we had to get in front of the Historic Commission, which we did to get the letter of support. From that time, there had been discussions with E4All in the Holyoke Chamber of Commerce. And Mr. Melendez can talk further about some of the groundwork that he's laid down. But we never got to the point quick enough to be able to turn those into letters of support. They were more informal conversations. The letters that we did ask for and did receive are the ones that are in the package.
Yeah, and if I may, so the $150,000 that we secured directly from Representative Duffy and the senator, it speaks exactly to that the chamber is a partner in the city of Holyoke. It speaks exactly to in the legislation that it's for the benefit of the city of Holyoke and in partnership with the Holyoke Chamber of Commerce. So those funds are for the city. It is going to come through us, but it's and with Jordan, the executive director, I just had a conversation with her last week. they're going to get a piece of that of that as well to support them. So, I think it's that's exactly how the conversations started with Representative Duffy and the Senator Vilas, because we want to make sure that we're a partner in every community that we serve. Of course, Holyoke is close to my heart, to Herbie's heart, and to know that this building was activated and used for 13 years, we need to make sure that this building is used. We have 17% of Latino businesses out of the full Holyoke business community. We need to grow that. We need to support that. And so I think that's very exciting. And I think it's clear that this is going to be a benefit for the full community. So on the chamber side, and I think, Madam Chair, you speak for that. That's the legislation that we were happy to support the chamber and partner with the chamber to bring in that money. And every single grant opportunity that we're going to come in is going to say this is for the city and for their partners, because this organization does not work on its own. The New England Farm Workers doesn't work on its own, and as in a holistic approach, that's exactly why I think those letters of support on a macro level are so crucial. And I think as we move forward, those partnerships are just going to get stronger.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, and Mr. White, oh my goodness, you've made it with us to the end of this very, very long night. You ready to go?
Okay. Let me just see what I can do here. Well, it has been a long evening there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be short and very brief, I think. When we started this project, we began documenting everything we were doing. Anybody can go to www.holyoke.com and see pictures of the before and the after work. This week or next week, they'll be upgrading some of the current stuff that we have just done. And if anybody wants to visit the property, they can call 413-642-2493. And we would be happy to give them a personal tour of the facility. We have people from all over the world who are talking to us about this building. And we're very proud of what we've done. All of the presenters today, in my humble opinion, I would like to suggest that the Richardson station eclipses them all, both historically, culturally, and economically. Historically, Richardson is one of the top preeminent architects in U.S. history. He's got more books about him than almost anybody else on the subject. Economically, this project is going to generate 30 to 40 jobs in Holyoke, with a good percentage of them available to the local community. If you Google H.H. Richardson buildings in Massachusetts, this station comes up fairly regularly in the thing. It receives national attention all the time. If you look at the property viewer in Holyoke, only the H.H. Richardson station is listed as a historic building. If you reference the many studies that have been done on this building, every single one stresses that the H.H. Richardson building is historically significant and vital to Holyoke's cultural and economic situation. If you have access, you can read dozens of letters from organizations, politicians, government officials, members of the public that say that the Richardson station is an asset to the community and needs to be preserved. Speak to Richardson's fans. Speak to railroad buffs. They all know the building, the architect, and once this project is completed, they will be drawn to Holyoke to see what has happened. Right now, we get people from North Africa, England, Italy, contacting us, wanting to know what's happening on this building in Holyoke, Massachusetts. The Richardson Station is the real deal, and it needs your support. We have asked for $200,000. Maybe we should have asked for $1 million. I don't know. But this project will continue to be an expensive project. The city, before they sold it, estimated that it was going to be $1 million to $2 million. Some estimates have gone up to $3 million. It's not going to go that high, but it will be an expensive proposition. The money that we would request from the CPA is going to be specifically used for architectural and engineering plans, handicapped access, completion of the platforms. We've completed about 40% of the platforms now, some security and windows. Over the last 18 months, I think that we have demonstrated our ability and our commitment. Every day, something gets completed at that station. Saturdays, Sundays, Monday through Friday, there are people there doing stuff that need to be done. In the last 18 months, we have made great progress. The smaller building is almost ready for tenants. We'll be having tenants in there within the next 3 months. We've completed the major stone repair on that building. I saw the Wisteriahurst talk about pointing and stuff like that. That's nothing compared to the major stonework that we've had to do where these stones weigh hundreds of pounds. We've completely rebuilt the chimney. We've rebuilt one of the platforms. We've rebuilt the roof. All of this in 18 months. This year, we will be concentrated on ceilings, modern bathrooms, updated electrical, and fire safety. In 2023, we will be looking for tenants to go into the building. Please approve our request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. White. All right. Yes, it's Rivera.
For me, it's the same question I asked everyone else with regards to the public benefit. And again, and then the other piece to me is I grew up in the flats. I've walked, I went in there illegally as a kid, played around the whole place. Like like that place actually brings a lot of value and memories to me, a lot of my friends, and a lot of the people that actually live in that community now. We appreciate that someone has bought it and is working on it. I would like to know or see what plans are in the future for it and how it will bring the community and the flats together to actually use that space as a community space, because it looks like it was once a community space where a lot of people were able to gather and not only use it as a train station, but also use it as a place for like a variety of different things. But yeah, for me, it's public benefit for the community overall and the city of Holyoke. That's the question, I guess.
The station is big. A lot of things can go in there. Everybody automatically says that it should be a restaurant. Look at the steaming tender and other stations in the country that have been converted. That's a high possibility. If it is, there's going to be dozens of jobs for the local community. That's something. They'll not only be able to work there, they can come and use the facilities. Other people have talked about putting in an art gallery in the building. If you look at the image behind me, you'll see where an architect from North Africa sent us this design, utilizing the what we call an upper floor, which was probably put in illegally in there. But It'll allow people on one level to look up and see the ceiling, which is probably the most beautiful part of the building right now, or will be the part of the building right now. I think that it could be anything. I think the smaller building is going to have a tenant in there that has something to do with food. It will welcome all of the tenants in the flats, and quite frankly, anybody that's traveling down Main Street, Canal Street, in the area there. And I think it's probably going to be up and running in 2 to 3 months. Aside from that, we don't have a hard and fast tenant in mind, and we're open to suggestions from the entire community.
I would suggest probably a small business owner from that community.
Maybe the historic Latino Chamber of Commerce would need a home. He could come down. But anybody who can utilize the space. It's really quite a big building that could have one tenant in it, or it could have multiple tenants. And the architects are completing some interior plans. Our goal is to get the basic shell of the building ready, and then we'll start looking for real tenants where we may have to make some changes to accommodate them. But that's the thing. We hope that we are going to have paying tenants in there in 2023. Probably July through September is our goal.
I think one of my questions is just around, part of our responsibility as a CPC is to take taxpayer money, right? It's not ours, right? It all comes from taxpayers, right? Even the state match, right, comes from state level taxpayers across the state. So I think one of the pieces that we're held accountable to is to make sure that we are investing the money wisely. And one of the tools that we have at our disposal for that is restrictions. So, we've just completed 2 restrictions over the past month with projects from last year. One a preservation restriction, and one a housing restriction. And these are documents that protects taxpayer investment and says that the applicant's going to follow the guidance of the Department of the Interior for the standards, for historic rehabilitation and restoration for, a period of time, right? Most of these are 15 or 25 years. The CPC, the CPA legislation requires us to have a restriction for when we acquire projects, right? If we ever purchase a building, right, we have to. But for any sort of sizable project, the state coalition very strongly advises that we have a restriction. So I know that you have some, you expressed in the application that you are not willing to accept a restriction. And so that's something that I have questions about.
Well, I have questions. Am I muted? No, there we go. I have questions about it also, and several people, and I think you just answered the question that it's not mandated. And I think that one of the reasons why we've put so much time and money into the project already is that we wanted to demonstrate our commitment to making sure the project goes forward. The amount of money we're asking for the CPA is a minimal amount of money compared to the total project, which is going on. And yes, I do have some concerns about the restrictions because it could prevent future financing of the building or something that we're doing there. And I think that I have no problem in making sure that the building operates and is constructed or modified or whatever has to be in what would be an acceptable manner by the committee. But I think that you don't want to put for a small amount of money, you don't want to put a restriction on operation that's going to hamper its ability to complete the project, to create jobs and get everything done. And I think that that is a concern that everybody should address. We've got 80% of the outside of that building already done. On the inside, in the little building, we've got 95% of it already done. We're not sitting around ignoring what is good building practices according to the Historical Commission or anybody else. We want to see that building true to Richardson's concept and design. And so that we would hope that since it is not mandated, that it would not be required.
Quick question. I'm sorry. What's not mandated? The restriction?
Historical preservation lien on the building for 25 years, which could impact future financing and ability to raise money, or to proceed quickly to get things done. And it could actually raise the cost of making improvements in the building. And I don't want to see anything interfere with the overall development true to Richardson standards. I want to see it done, and I want to get it done, by 2023. We want to complete this project in its entirety in less than 4 years. And I think we're on track to do that right now. And so that's what I was talking about, whether it's a deed restriction is required or not. I don't believe that it is. I believe that the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General's office have said that they did not think that it was required to do that. And I think he just confirmed that it isn't. So I would hope that we're asking for a modest amount of money, and we would hope that we could get it. I have no problems earmarking it for essential things, and the essential things are architectural design. One of the big things is going to be fire safety. You're going to have to put all new sprinkler systems in there because they've been gutted. Some of the water lines owned by the city are not up to code that have to be brought up. Any of the safety things like that, we can probably find volunteers or people who will provide lumber and stuff like that. But some of the things like the engineering costs and things like that would really benefit from a grant from the CPA.
The train station is a gem. It's named in our preservation plan, right, for the CPC. It's very clear to me that it is a very important building. I also sit on the board of the Holyoke Preservation Trust, where this building has come up a number of times, right? I've toured with you the train station. Mm-hmm. This is a building that I really do believe the CPC should have a hand in trying to preserve. But I don't know if I would be able to vote for this project if you weren't willing to accept a restriction, because the conversations we've had as a CPC so far has only been for projects that are under $30,000. I know $200,000 to someone who is doing the scope and scale of work that you're doing feels very small, but for us, where our budget is routinely between $700,000 and $800,000 a year, $200,000 feels like a lot, actually. In terms of the most expensive project we've funded so far has been $380,000. So, so for us, it does feel like a lot, and it's also taxpayer money. It's not my money to give, right? So there's that for me.
So there's a valid question. I agree with you. I mean, the question is getting the job done quickly, getting the job done properly, how you pay for it. All of these things come into into being. And I realize that. But I think that we've attempted to demonstrate our commitment to do it. And I think that the restoration project would be delayed without some type of input from the thing. It's not going to be dismantled or anything like that. But, you know, some of the costs, like the engineering studies and things like that, it certainly would help.
So do you believe your project would be delayed more by a restriction than from not receiving the $200,000 in funding?
Run that by me again.
Like, I mean, I think every applicant, right? I think it's very different talking with someone who is nonprofit versus, you know, someone who is a private citizen, who's someone who's doing this good work, roll their sleeves and develop this property, right? Like the property's at derelict a really long time, and you stepped up, right? I will always honor you for that. But I think it's, you know, every applicant has to decide: are the strings attached worth the funding? And I think you're saying, but could there just not be strings? And I'm not sure that's true.
Well, that's one thing that I'm sure that all of you will have to give some consideration to. And I'm happy to talk to you about that. But all I'm saying is that if your intent is to get properties preserved and create jobs and take care of the cultural needs of the city, I don't think $200,000 is a stretch to do. I mean, I know that you have historic preservations on Wisteriahurst and other places, government buildings that you actually own, the city actually owns. And, you know, they're great. But the question is, getting the job done effectively. And I'm telling you that we're going to do it the way Richardson would want it done. And if you believe me, I certainly hope that we could work together on this.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Bye.
Members of the CPC. So I just want to quickly clarify when our next meeting is, since we were not all present last time. And I know that a number of folks have recently stepped into the role. And so I wanted to make sure that this date was still going to work for everybody. So our plan right now is to, let me pull up my calendar, is to meet Wednesday, the 9th of February. Is that still a date that works for folks? And is it enough time for folks to, based on the presentations we've heard tonight and the applications that you have access to, is it enough time for you to score the applications ahead of time? I know that Amy sent out.
I lost my train of thought. I was thinking about something else. I'm sorry.
So before the next meeting, we have to score the applications on the grid that Amy sent out.
Yeah.
Did everyone get access to the grid?
The date is what I was listening to. The date. My bad.
Yes. So what I'm trying to figure out is, are folks available on Wednesday the 9th? And do folks feel like they'll have time to score the applications before then? Because the goal is for Amy to be able to look at that and say, okay, here are the 3 most highly scored applicants. Let's start with those. And those will be the first 3 that we tackle. And hopefully it will help us to move through things faster. Is that a date that still works for everybody? Mary, you're not sure?
No, I am sure, but I had a question about the second part of what you said.
Sure, go ahead, Mary.
Well, the business of scoring, what about if we would want to give it a good score, but not the full amount? In other words, what if we were listening and heard you could do just a little bit this year? The scoring doesn't account for that, really. So, I mean, I could give something a top score, but I would rather have a discussion about how much.
So I think the goal is for us to score the projects based on, do you want to fund them, right? And potentially fund them over others, right? We simply do not have enough funding for all the asks that are in front of us, right? So I think the goal is to score them based on merit. And then when we look at the projects, that's where someone might say, prior to just, we'll look at the scores, we'll have a discussion, and then someone will make a motion. And then we'll vote. And then we'll take it project by project. And that's where under discussion, you could say, I would fund this, but only this stage 1. So I'm going to make a motion for $80,000 of funding towards this project. Do I have a second? And then we go from there.
I was going to say that in the past. I was going to say exactly that in the past, that we would do the voting piece like right now. And then later on, while we were going through the projects, the discussion will come out. We would eventually discuss and then do motions like she just mentioned. So yeah, you just took everything I was going to say.
And following from that, I think I'm hearing that you're thinking that our score sheets are going to have naturally come up with a list of priorities. To me, I can think of a couple of them on there that probably have an equal score already in my mind. So, I'd probably have like 3 with perfect scores, say. So you're making the assumption that they aren't going to come out like that? Or are you going to wait and find out about that?
So we're all going to score them individually. We won't be able to see each other's scores, right? That's part of open meeting law, right? It goes to Amy. Right. You will be able to actually see everything and put it together in a way that she can share it with us in the next meeting. And then when we look at it, we'll decide which projects we're going to talk about first.
Okay. All right.
Also, I think, has everyone seen the emails that were sent to us with letters? So I think it does make sense for those letters to be read into the public record at the next meeting.
Okay.
So that's my plan, to start there and read those letters into the public record, because I think that they need to be, because they were sent to us. And then we'll jump into looking at the scores and then starting to debate projects. Any other questions, Amy?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does this mean that you might actually vote on projects at the next meeting? Because we really haven't put the survey out there to the public for very long, and it might be good just to have it out there a little bit longer, to have a chance to put it on social media, so people can really weigh in.
I think that's great. Yeah, and I think that we can look at that alongside of the scores, right? I mean, we're using it in order to figure out how to quickly get at projects that we can see there's a lot of support for, right? And then we can always look at the survey and see how folks felt about that project as well when we're discussing and then debating it.
But my question is, if you are you going to vote on the projects at the next meeting? Because if you do, then there isn't that much time for the public to do the survey.
I think if folks don't do it in the next 2 weeks, they're not going to do it. I think 2 weeks is enough time to put it out there, and we've done our due diligence, and we can post it. You can send it out on the newsletter along with a link to the recording, of the presentations, and then we go from there.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, horror stories? Okay. All right. It's 10 o'clock. I think we all, we put in our time tonight. Oh my goodness. Okay. Also, we started late.
Put her to bed.
Thank you to all of you. Yes. Oh my goodness. I snuck up for like 1 minute at one point. I ran up the stairs so I could snuggle my son and say, good night, go to bed. All right. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you on February 9th. And like at the beginning of the meeting time.
I just wanted to mention that, I'm sorry, I know we all want to end this meeting, but I just wanted to mention that in the past we would sort of ask, like the committee would get a chance to have a little more, I don't know, to like really to ask questions and have more back and forth. And I'm just wondering if you are going to vote on the projects at the next meeting, I just don't know if we'll have all the answers and the details. That would be good to have information.
someone has to make a motion. We can always discuss a project and in the middle of the discussion realize, nah, we do not have enough information right now. Let's bring in an applicant. All of these things are just going to happen organically. The scoring is just a place to start.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, I feel like even with the scoring, we could all score them all perfect and then deem that we don't want to fund no project, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. Look, there's a few projects that are the low-lying fruit. We'll get those done right away, I guarantee you. There's a few ones I think we probably all agree we can put to bed and get them done early. There'll be a few probably a little more time on, but I think
and legal can start working on the contracts.
Let's get them done,
Right.
It also spreads it out. So if we can vote on 2 projects in a meeting, they can start working on those contracts and we're not hitting them with all of them all at once. So
exactly.
I think we're not going to vote on all of the projects at the next meeting, but I know that we're going to be able to vote on a few of them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. I think we need a motion technically to adjourn the meeting.
To adjourn.
Second. Do I hear a second? Second. Y'all are fast on that one. Yeah. All right. See you on the night.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.